Mie matunwek tugul otakatin eng show nenyo nebo Igere Nee Chitab Kalenjin kemi episode number 34. Mwawech kityo ile inyorwech inyeno ngimi emetab Australia, ngimi kebeberta nebo Adelaide, South Australia, ngimi kora kebeberta nebo emetab Kenya ak kebeberwek tugul ko kaib nafas neinegei satachak ale itagat karibu show nenyo kemi tarik 20 okwa akere kakoil arawet kotiketau lakini kikere tarik 22 kitinye betusiek kityo karibu betusiek 6 anan betusiek 7 sikosikyi ketar arawani 7. So mwawech ile imyeno eng betutab rani akere biik kobun takwek cheberchin akere Ian Kipchumba Sulu all the way from kebeberta neb Adelaide, South Australia ak kebeberwek yomi ameche kityo imwawech ile imyeno eng kemboutab rani sikosikyi ketestai pamoja. Biikchuk chebo olep nyumbani, biikchuk chebo kebeberta neb Adelaide, South Australia, meche karibuni akere biik kokakobun takwek cheberchi. Akere Willy Kipkoskei Rotich following you from Kapsabet. Kongoi Willy Kipkoskei all the way from Olimba Kapsabet. Akere Jacqueline Cheruta Selem kale following from Olimba kebeberta nebo Dubai. Akere chi nekikure Kipkurui Shadrack Lagat kale following from kebebertab Aldai. Mwawech akere Dorin Chirchir. Kongoi Dorin eng ole nyorchinech eng kemboutab rani. Ameche kityo asom ale ongeshian show nebo betutab rani, ongelaikan show nebo betutab rani sikosikyi keityi biik chechang eng kemboutab rani. Kibendi kinami show nenyo akoi koi kitugoti. Ameche kityo ale shian laikan show, mwawech ile inamchinech ano anan kinyorchinin ano sikosikyi kinetkei kibagenge, kinetegei safarit nebo tot nekitindoi eng yu netinye safarit ake kabisa namang'u ale cherin chitab Kalenjin ing kole imi. So kebeberta neb Adelaide, South Australia akere kimi day 2 nebo lockdown kosubkei ak miondo nekikokoromit nemi kebeberwek tugul. Kilen iwe olimbo Melbourne, Australia ko korom. Kap chi tugul kobarekei ak miondo neb corona. Tikibwatu ak biik chok chomi emetab Kenya akomi emotunwek ale oye toribkei kabisa, toribis korok ipkoelgei corona amu korom. Akere chi nekikure Milka Nyokosei kale following from Kosirai. Kongoi chitab olimbo Kosirai eng emetab Kenya ak kebeberwek tugul. Akere biik akotoi koingian. Ameche ale oye tinfaitan chorwa neng'ung tishian show asikosikyi keityi biik chechang eng kemboutab rani. Kebebertab olimbo Sydney, Australia, akere biik chebo Sydney kakotoi koingian. Akere mwalimu Eric all the way from kebeberta nimbo Angari kakotoi koingian show nenyo eng nebo betutab rani. Biikab Western Australia ak kebeberwek tugul ameche ale otakatin eng show nenyo kemi episode number 34. Biikab kebeberta nebo Nairobi akere ingiani pole. Ameche kityo abwatwok akobo Tolcom. Ngimi ole imi, kimi emetab Australia. This is application ne downloadeni kityo eng Play Store. Sikomuch ibir simet ong'alal ak biik eng olimbo mashinani, ong'alal ak biik eng olimbo emetab Kenya anan emotunwek alak iboisie kityo notok Tolcom. Tolcom ko kamwawech Tolcom kole Tolcom ko yani very network nanyi ko mameche angot ko chito kotinye nini ya itaunlodeni kityo eng Play Store. Atyo ko chito nekakotaunlode Tolcom ibirchi kityo simet ako konin 10 minutes free chabo trial chakilen kitestene water. So abwatwok akobo Tolcom. Akere Dominic kobun kebeberta nebo UK ameche kelande kong'ete kebeberta nebo Adelaide, South Australia kebe kekrosen akoi emetab olimbo Columbus, Ohio sikenyoru kele amune balozi eng emetab the Right Brothers. Balozi amune emetab olimbo Columbus, Ohio. Karibu balozi. Akere tikomutena. Karibu.
Kongoi Osea kautie unmuten to unmute so but kichomegei Osea. Kararan Columbus kakoech karon ngole ang nitok ng'etioti lakini ngano ko kakeng'etye kichomegei ko kararan kebeberi kimi sama ako tesetai komie ang yutok koruriot bandek Osea eng olep Ohio ngele kimi mbar Uasin Gishu koroni so korurio bandek kabisa eng kebeberi lakini kichomegei nebo man ko makinye ng'olyo eng olep Columbus, Ohio. Akongoi eng taonyo nekakoit inendet ko Nelly Chepkirui Ronoh. kobun kebeberta kokinyorchi kebeberta anan bunu county nebo Bomet taonyo namba 34 kobun kebeberata bo Bomet komeche sikiro kele kinyorchi ne kebeberita bo Bomet ko ketesetai kouni ko ameche kebe akoi kebeberta nimbo Florida anan California abwoti ale Florida kaker kityo sosiot eng yo akere ale kimi Florida tekemi olimbo beach eng olimbo Florida ko engineer une olimbo Florida kokoruryo bandek olinyo mongen ale une Florida karibu engineer.
Kongoi balozi au kongoi Hosea ak tonyo nebo rani kimeche ketachin kabisa. We're really grateful. Kongoi amu joinenech rani. Abwoti ale iwendi ichere biik chechang ako kongoi kora eng kastoek chok chekakotunenin testai share show nenyo akimwochi chitugul netomo kokase anan neibwoti ile imache kocherak amu o boisiet nekemeche sike o banda nekeme sikisup eng karonenie brani eng oliep Florida. Balozi kechamege makitinye ngal, roboni kityo, inanyesha huku roboni thunderstorms almost every day. Abwoti ale chito nekikakol bandek ko wakati nitok ne harvesteni, so tomo akol anything but you have challenged me nguno. Ngotot indei bandek eng olinbo Columbus Ohio ak winter achek eng Florida ko suppose ketindoi kora bandek but sitaro nye boisionotok lakini kimi kechamegei balozi ak abaibai eng betuni eb rani aker chitugul ak guest. So karibu kokeny Nelly ako karibu chitugul. All our guests, we're really excited to have you and we appreciate support neogonech kila betut. Kongoi balozi.
Kongoi nye Janet eng kebebertab Florida ko kuye kemwa engineer ko meche kibwatun akobo Telcom notok sponsor nenyonet eng betutab rani ko boisie sikobit ibir simet iitchi chamanikuk eng olimbo gaa rahisi ng'olyondonep Telcom amu yenyoru kityo i-downloaden akibir kekonin kora trial free ko kisome kele oye boisie siitchi chamanik ngimi sang ngimyeno konyamnyum asinyoru chamanikuk eng olimbo gaa. Ko kou yekemwa engineer makikole bandek ichekei, kikole ngwek kora boto sochek, isakek, kitinye ngoli kabisa ngotomeche kealdoiwo ko sawa, we can ship. So mite choto tugul. So kichamegei kabisa, kitinye sukuma, kitinye cho tugul. Akechobe kora mursik kora, so mi kiy age tugul inye, so mabwoti ale kimiseni kiy age tugul. Kikeeku experts eng ng'alechu ko kichamegei eng kimasi. Kimeche kotekesom kele sharean chi age tugul neisubech, sir ile imyeno isubech kobun ano, nekit siketou tetutiet nebo betutab rani episode number 34 ketinye taot nebo komonut. Abwoti ale icheroksei chi age tugul neimi yo, ngot ko ka lion icheroksei, mi kamang'unet eng tukchu tugul eng bani ko yekitou kisub bani isub kobotech asikobit kelande tugul kebe kebeberta nin akenai kele mi kamang'unet. So sharean ak chi age tugul, mising okot ko neranik, kwonyik ak chi age tugul. So taonyo nebo rani kobo komonut, bo komonut toek chok tugul, lakini very interesting taot neketinye eng betutab rani, notok ko inendet Nelly Chepkirui Ronoh nekakinyorchi kebebertab Bomet ko meche sikikochi sikokatech taututiet ko kekonin boroindo Nelly ikat kityo kostoik ak kasubik chok ilechi chamgei asikobit ketestai. Nelly.
Kongoi balozi. Kou kokokas, kainenyu ko Nelly Chepkirui Ronoh, abu olimbo Bomet, kokwet nekibore Kapkures, ak kokotok tugul en Lomi. And ra I'm here to share my personal story. Sikocherak biik chemuche kocher.
Kongoi nye Nelly, abwati ale ichere tugul ak ichere cheimuchi kocherokis. Ngap komi cheuen mugulelwek, so ngomecherake ko inyoiwek kat, lakini cheocheroksei abwati ale ko icherake eng oret age anan ko age. I'm sure journey nebo Nelly kocherin eng oret age anan itinye inyoru akot kamang'unet so noton nekemeche kiro kele kakinyoru kaokas kitinye toonyo betutab rani kongoi Osea eng kebebertab Australia kongoi engineer eng boroindo nitok nekakeib sikobit ketestai eng tetutiet nebo betutab rani ko Osea ameche kityo akonin imwoiwech ile tokosubech akot ng'o inga makere eng kebebertanyu eng computer nenyunet manai ale kalya lakini ngano ko Osea abwoti ale ikere ameche sikobit ketou so eng dakikaishek olobo aeng ketou tetutiet nebo betutab rani ko ole kibetitoi kebendi kou kila abwoti ale kitoune kibendi no kilen ladies first ko meche sikokotoiwech engineer asikobit ketestai kou notok and then kebe ketebege alternateni so toonyo tebutik inyoru tebutik chetai kobun inendet Janet and then anyo and then konyo Osea kou notok alternateni kimwoe kou kotugul kelen feel free Nelly boisie language neikere ile imuchi koityi bikyok so Kalenjin Kiswahili ak Kingeresa abwoti ale kingen choto tugul ko neikere ile kanyumnyumit ngap komi ng'alek alake chemami Kalenjin imuchi imwae Kingeresa anan ko Kiswahili mi alake chemami so ko yemami iname chun amu noto amune sikikebe sukul so ako kikinetkei languages chu tugul ko ole kibetitoi notok so Osea kimeche kekonin asimwoiwech ile tokosubech akot ng'o and then ketou tetutiet Osea.
Kongoi Balozi Peter Ronoh, kongoi kora toonyo nekakoit eng kemboutab rani ak kemboi eng emetab Australia tongen ale tuko mapema ngolimbo emetab Kenya. Meche atach kora ale karibu engineer nenyo kabaibaitu akere kemi show akere Kidi Kilel kale watching live kongoi Kidi Kilel ole imi eng saishekab koraki Eliab Cheruyot following from Olimbo Nicosia Cyprus kongoi chitab Cyprus. Caroline Kering kale following from Olimba, Ohio. Dennis Kitur following from Chuka University. Theophilus Kipsang kale following from Minnesota. Evans Kaitan following from Elgeyo Marakwet. Chepkoge Prudence following, waiting to hear yet another incredible story. Kongoi Chepkoge Prudence all the way from Olimba, Malta. Kitinye Janet Chepto kale kararan kabisa. I'm following from Eldoret, say hi to dear Janet. Kongoi Janet Chepto all the way from Eldoret. Felma Chebet following from Eldoret. Kongoi Felma. Generali Talam Paroswa, chita na kazi kubwa kabisa ndiripoindetab karitab maat ngolimba Western Australia. Kale kiande parking mi kokere isubi tetutiet chini Wilson Koros. Kongoi boyot Wilson Arab Koros all the way from kebebertaneb Adelaide, South Australia. Elikana Kiprotich Mayo kale following from kebebertaneb South Africa. Kongoi Shadi, the program is loud and clear in Aldai, Kobucha, Nandi County, waiting to hear from our guest today. Kongoi Shadi. Ezekiel watching from Sydney, Australia. Willie Kiposke, Kongoi Willie Kiposke, Dorcas Chelagat, all the way from Kebebertaneba, Olimba, Nairobi County. Kongoi big chagere wengian, kongoi big chagere Shian, Ametatoshian, I would give kongoi kabisa in big chagitana nap. You get in a show, nego sirtoy, nego tang big Balozi, Jagokonyorwa, personal level, you get in the Itaik, Lago, Kagigure, Gigure, young prospective athletes, sports. Tegi korom kabisa Balozi kwa review ni le English chebo lagok chebo oli ak chukija ko ter Balozi kingap kole lagok 70 ye lenga le 17 ngap kole 50 lenga le 15 so kongoi Chebet and Kibet wherever you are ak the family nebo Tanui in program ni kosirtoi amu kyokone lagok kobwa show ako jang lagok chekwa kwagere kokota ngot kobirat basketball anan Dennis ingolimba ground kobaru kole kicheragis lagok so olomi Kibet and Chebet kemwae kongoi and the family nebo Tanui en opportunity nekyokone lagok kobwa show kongoi agere Naftali Pet watching from Kebeberta nebo Bomet, Joseph Rotich, amge following kongoi Joseph Rotich wherever you are. Korir Shadrach watching from Doha, Qatar. DJ Kipsot, kale great kabisa DJ Kipsot ak Captain B kwai kasit neo kabisa. Biikab kokwet ak biikab naitienindet ko kale kimi locked eng kemboutab rani kosube chini kwa chini. Karibu balozi otaiwei safari.
Kongoi nye Osea, kongoi tekemwae kongoi kaking'etye anan koking'etye kebeberta nebo Adelaide, South Australia ak kebe akoi Bomet eng betutab rani. Ko mara eng betusiek chemi tai keitu county neng'ung anan ko emet neimite, so ngotingen chi nemi emet fulani neikose ile takiityi imwoiwech, imuchi isirwech asikobit ketyem kecheng tekebendi kecheng'e biik. We still have very very interesting guests eng betusiek chemi tai, ko kibendi kecheng'e biik chok sikenai kele mieno akwae ne. Ko kimeche kemwa kongoi eng akwek tugul Tirop bet kakerin ko oye kongoi Naftali ko kabwoti ale kakemwa. Kongoi DJ Kipsot ak inyendet Arabi akweket kekere boisiet nekararan kisubi tetutik cheoibu, ko kimeche kemwa kongoi eng akwek tugul eng boisiet neoe nekararan ako tekemwae kele oye yeimuchi chi supporten okot Kipsot kesome kora kele try to support them in one way or another. So keba kouyo kicheng'oti biik ko ngap komeche kokali ng'alekab barabara, you can sponsor iyai kiy nekemuch iyai sikobit kotokoityi biik chok. So kimeche keityi biik eng olimbo gaa, kimeche keityi biik eng ole tugul sikenai kele oe ne biik chok. So kongoi eng boisiet nekararan DJ Kipsot ak inyendet Arabi ak akwek tugul cheoe tetutik chotok koibu kisubi eng kebeberi ako kiboiboen. Ko ketesetai kounitok komeche kemwa kityo kele karibuni tugul. Shean mwa ile imieno, mwa ile isubech ing mieno ak isir kainet ak imwa ile imieno. So kongoi kounotok ketesetai. Ko kakimwa kele kakinyoru taonyo kobun kebeberta nebo Bomet. Ko county nebo Bomet ko county nebo komonut kou counties chun alak eng yotok 47. Ko taonyo nebo 34 ko kakinyorchi Bomet. Ko kakinyoru kele Bomet kotinye area nebo 1630 km square, notok ko kergei ak 629.3 square miles. Population nebo kebebertab anan county nebo Bomet ko nekit ak nokait 875,689. Abwoti ale kait karibu milionit olin biik chemi kebeberta nebo Bomet. Bomet kotindoi 25 county assembly wards, tindoi 5 constituencies. Economic activities chekinyorchin kebeberi kenyorchin chaik, coffee farming, kinyorchin horticulture, cattle rearing, yani boe tuga biikab olotok. Nebo komonut eng tugul komitei area potato nekenyorchin kebebertab Bomet. Kokile potato ini ko ngeboisie ko nekit kimuchi keboisie sikobit kenyor chokilen tortillas tukyo tugul. So area potato nekinyorchin kebebertab Bomet. So biikab Bomet orib potato ini anan biasiat, mongen ale kikure ne eng olimbo Kipsigis, lakini biasinik komi biasiat makinyorchin ola tugul, kinyorchin Bomet inege. Ko kebeberita bo Bomet eng 2007 ko kitindoi primaries 479, secondary 96. Ko tourism attraction eng kebeberi ko abwoti ale nekit kebunei tetegei ak kebeberta nebo Narok. So ngimeche iwe Masai Mara ilondoi kebeberatak. So mitei kora culture, traditional culture mwaat kunotok. Ko kit nebo komonut eng kebeberi Bomet ko nekit tienik chechang tugul chekinyoru chetieni secular, chetieni music. So abwoti ale tienik chechang kobunu kebebertab Bomet. Ngimeche inai ile ole kitiendoi imuchi iwe kebeberata sinai ile secret netindoi kone. Most artists kobunu kebebertab Bomet. Abwoti kora ale kebendi kounotok iyonwo akot akinye ile chito boiyot necham akure ane the father of Kalenjin music ko chit nekikure Kipchamba ko kibunu Bomet boiyondoni. So ikere ile kikobun masatak. Kebebertab Bomet kora ko kiimuch koproducen the first female governor in Kalenjin, notok Dr. Joyce Laboso ne kikomuny. Ko kibunu kebeberitak ako kakinyorchi taonyo rani inendet Nelly Chepkirui Ronoh ko kakinyorchi kebebertab Bomet kemeche sikenai amu agere ko unique eng orenyi akine eng tukchu tugul makingen mara kongen kotien mara manachi kongen tukchu tugul chekakemwa ko abwoti ale kaikas tuguk chekinyorchin Bomet koboto toonyo nebo betutab rani ko kimeche keba akoi kebeberta nebo olimbo Florida asikobit kebe neu nakakimwa kele ladies first ko kuye kakimwa kebendi ketebe tebutik kotebe Janet tebutik chetai somok asiketestai kunoto anyo ke alternate na kosea kounotok ketesetai ko Janet karibu.
Kongoi balozi au kongoi kora eng kastoik chok chetakosubech kakimwa kele Shan show nenyo asikobit keitchi biik chechang kibendi ketau nguno ako abwati ale kakokenis toonyo rani Nelly Chepkirui Ronoh karibu sana ako swali nenyo netai Nelly kemeche kenai kele Nelly ko ngo kikisikchin ano kiwe sukul ano primary ak secondary ano kitaune ano bandang'ung Nelly karibu.
Kongoi Janet, amwoe kongoi, especially for this opportunity. It's not an everyday thing that somebody is able to identify you. Akoger kole whatever kind of experiences cheating is able to benefit other people. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. So Nelly is a very dynamic girl in all aspects. Ane kikisikyon Bomet, village nekikuren Kakures. Kinager tarikit, it was a Saturday in the evening at 10 p.m. and that's why I'm called Chepkirui, Kingogoruya bi. So that is where I was born to Mr. and Mrs. Jane and John Ronoh. And I started school in 1991 and Elegiguren Kakures Primary. Actually, my mom happens to have been my nursery school teacher because she's a teacher. And then thereafter, in 1994, nikaenda Kinyelwet Primary, Kiguren Kinyelwet, it is just Pitaningole and Konyo, and that is where my father used to teach at that time. So I went there for 2 years in 1993 in class 2 and class 3 94. Thereafter, my dad is an educationist and anapenda masomo sana. So he tried his best to find an opportunity for me, and one of my uncles was a presidential escort during Moi's era, Augi Menye State House, Nairobi. So nikakuja kusomea Nairobi from 1995. I had to redo class 3 because I couldn't read properly my tenses and everything else. So I did class 3 again in 1995 and 96 I was in class 4. Thereafter, my uncle was promoted to DOD Nakuru. So we had to move and I went to Tengecha Primary School. It was one of the good schools at that time in Kapkatet. And so I did my class 5 up to class 8 there. And I scored 534 marks in the year 2000. That is when I was in class 8. I was in the last group of those who were doing the 7 subjects. I was called to Kapropita Girls, but my dad didn't believe that it was a good school for me at that particular moment. And he also had other opportunities. So he tried his best to see that I got a school in Nairobi. So I went to Pangani Girls between the year 2001 and 2004. And later I joined Nakuru High School from 2005 to 2006. And I scored a B-.
Kongoi Nelly, that's a journey. Looks like kiwe sugulishek chechang. Which is good amu kikararan the outcome kiimutin iwe Pangani atya and now where you are sita imwawech. So eng family neng'ung ale kaimwa ile ki mwalimu baba neng'ung ki educationist ako kaimwa ile ki mwalimu mama neng'ung. Tos kitinye siblings ako mieno siblings chekuk ako kora ko kiune life in general as just as a young child.
Okay. So probably to begin with my parents, my dad was a P1 teacher at that particular time. Until 1998, he was 42 years and he decided to go back to school, Kenyatta University during the Eshwani's time. And he was able to do his bachelor's degree, did his master's, and he's done other different jobs until the last one that he was working at Mount Kenya University. Before that, he had been at Kenya Institute of Education. He did early childhood education. And why I'm talking much about my dad at this point is because he's been my inspiration. His journey started a bit late, but it is also a successful one. So my mom is a teacher as well to date. She's been a teacher all through in a primary school next to home, Kapures Primary, until recently she went to another neighboring school, but she's about to retire. Then I have, I'm a second born of 6 siblings. Our firstborn is a daughter. She works in Eldoret. She's a depot manager at KPC. She's a procurement officer. So then myself, I'm the second born. And then I have a brother who is a director at the county government of Bomet. He works at the office of the deputy governor. Then I had a brother who passed on in 2019, who was our fourth born. Then I have a sister who is at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. She's a second year student. She's also doing what I did. She's a radiographer. Apparently she says I'm her role model, which yeah, I'm happy to have inspired my own sister. Then I have a younger sister who is joining Form 4 this year, and she says she wants to be a pilot.
Wow, that's incredible. We wish all your siblings Chicago Misugul the best, and we know they will do just as well. Abotiali, you're very inspiring. Your story is very inspiring. Sigerango to your sister looks up to you. So Kongoi for sharing that. So Kemwawe Chile Kiwe 2 high schools. Awakai Mwawe Chile Kis Koen very well, you got a B minus, which, so what followed next? And also Mwawe Chilekilia Siwe to two high school. And also before that, Kemwa Ilegige were State House Primary. How does it look like to go to State House Primary School? Tosi Wendi Igati the president every now and then.
Well, for me, all my educational life, the most outstanding for me, which had a really huge influence in my life, is having gone to State House. Because apart from going to State House Primary, we used to live in State House, yeah, in the estate itself, where only the presidential escorts would be and anyone working in State House. That is where we used to live. And why I say it has had a lot of influence, amongst my siblings, apparently, my dad says that I'm the one who loves a lot of nice things, a lot of class, but then why would I not? Because I was brought up in an environment where everything was really good. And flowers, I'm one person who loves flowers. I buy flowers for my table, which is not a common culture here. But that is what I used to see. Everything looked so beautiful. So State House, yes, sometimes we would just go and see the president. He was really easy. Sometimes we are coming from school, we meet him on the road, either coming from Nakuru, because you remember our former president used to love using the road. So sometimes he would meet us walking back from school or going to school, and he would stop to say hi to us. And I still remember the sweets he used to give us. They were called murays. He used to give us packets of those. So many times I actually got to see the president. And on one occasion, I was being outspoken and being the person that I am. I used to love poetry a lot. So one time he came to visit us in State House Primary, and I had the opportunity to recite a poem for him. So State House was really nice. I loved it.
Wow,
And
incredible.
yeah, so about moving forward from why I went to 2 high schools is because, well, I got to Pangani in 2001 in Form 1, and I was an A student all through. And apparently, some of us go through what I call teenage crisis. And teenage crisis is real. I was still performing very well between Form 1, Form 2. By the time you get to Form 3, I mean, life just, and then there's also, I really didn't have as much culture shock as such, but that is when you're trying to balance your teenage life, your education and everything. And sometimes, and I have read about it severally, and that is why I even chose to share my story, is because teenage crisis is real. It can take you down, and it is just a syndrome. You don't understand why sometimes you behave the way you do, or your parents would not understand, your siblings, your own classmates. So for me, I was this hyper girl, hyper. And of course, I lost track of my education. And by the time we got to Form 3, the first term of Form 4, being the A student that I was, I had started getting C's, and it was devastating for me. I was quite young. I couldn't even handle that at that particular time. So one time I just gave up, and I just saw like I was going to fail. This was in June of the year 2004. I was already a registered student to sit my KCSE. But apparently on the 15th of June in 2004, I walked out in the morning, and walking out in Pangani means you've expelled yourself. So I woke up and just, walked out of the gate, boarded a matatu and went home, which, yeah, clearly you can imagine. My father had a lot of expectations, and he had a lot of, he had really sacrificed a lot, because at that time, that is when he was actually doing his degree at Jomo Kenyatta, at Kenyatta University. So he was struggling to pay all our school fees and his own, and my mom was also at home alone with their younger kids. And you can imagine how bad it was. So when I got home, I just didn't have a reason why I left. I just decided that I don't want to go back.
Nelly sora gatilin Janet.
Yeah.
Kele kinget kityagi mande eng sukul kingololunji kolejin mangu anan kiamwan kityongon kikasombuan ne anan kimaitinye reason age tugul.
Well, most of the things that used to bother me in school were just very small things, very small issues at this particular time. By that time, they were so big. Like, for example, of course, my parents being that at that time, they were also struggling. We never used to get like enough pocket money. And Pangani being what it was, all the rich kids, people would come on pickups and with a mat and a cooker, and they just come and spread it on the field there, cook like it's home brought to school. And sometimes my dad wouldn't make to come. Sometimes he would come. Sometimes he has exams. Sometimes he also doesn't just have the money. And it frustrated me. So those are the things that used to bother me. And now adding on to this hyperness and being that you're no longer concentrating in school, I just saw myself like I was going to fail. And I woke up and left. I honestly don't have any valid, good reason to have left. I just walked away because I think what I was ashamed or what I was scared of is fear of failure.
So kait ka Nelly, kait ka what happened? Kaya chunda ka kolyanguno so testai Janet sorry.
Yeah, I'll come to tap ali. Kiwe ka kwa kap your uncle and then kiwe ka Bomet.
Punyon, I had left my uncle's place in 1996 in class 4.
Oh,
so
okay.
I went home kwetu Kapkures. That is where I went.
Okay. So mwawe janyun kuya kate balozi. Kinya itkai, what happened?
Yeah, so I just went home, and my mom being the sweet person she is, and she's very conservative. She wouldn't, of course, chase me or anything. She just welcomed me. Anipikia chakula, kauliza mbona umekuja, and of course, I just didn't want to talk about it. And now the big battle was to come and face my father and explain why you have decided to come back home. So, of course, I stayed at home. My dad went to school, tried finding out what was the issue. There was really nobody seemed to have an explanation of why she left. And my dad came back home, tried talking to me, and we couldn't agree. I just told him I'm not going back, and I never went back. And my dad was very mad. So at that particular day, I still remember it to date. He just told me that since umekataa kwenda shule, you're going to be part of my workers who are going to be working in the farm. So for about all that period of time, we stayed at home. I stayed at home for 6 months. That is the whole of 2004 after I walked away. And so my younger brother was in Nakuru High. So one time my brother had a camera in school, which was illegal. He's very entrepreneurial. He's been entrepreneurial even to date. And he had a camera in school. He was suspended for having the camera in school. And when he was told to come back home, after 2 weeks of suspension, my dad, of course, had to take him back to school to go and do the disciplinary case. And during that period, my dad got so mad. And I think the waiting, and now that today I'm a medic, I also believe that probably he had gone hypoglycemic. The sugar levels were very low because they had been waiting for so long. He got so mad and he slapped my brother. And the principal's office was just next. And of course, when he came out, he started wondering what is wrong and what has happened. And finally, I think he was very sympathetic. My dad was very disappointed that, you're bothering me and your sister is at home. So this principal decides that, now who is this sister and where is she? Can you bring her? And that is how I ended up in Nakuru High. So I went there, did my exams. We were given exams end of that.
Nelly, kagira about your brother in your school?
Yes.
Okay. So that is interesting. So can you ravai komwa your father gole in kesumbwana agumi your sister gani gigeon kole the principal laram nyano your sister kole mutu
enda umlete. Yeah, that time it was
so
yes.
So that is how you ended up in Nakuru High.
Yes. So he asked him to come back with me, and I went and did the interview, and of course I passed. But I just decided that I wanted to start from Form 3. I didn't want to go to Form 4 despite the fact that I had passed the exams. So I went back to Form 3, and that is 2005. I started in Form 3 again, cleared in 2006. So I went to high school for 6 years. But by the time I was done in 2006, I was pregnant in Form 4.
In school, no.
Yes, I did my Form 4 exams. I was already pregnant.
Oh, so in the exam go you expect?
Yes.
Imi school Nakuru High, it was a mixed school.
Yes, it was a mixed school, but apparently the father to my child was not a student there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Gijamo Mandaisa?
Not really, probably during the holidays.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the start from there.
Yeah, so very interesting. So you're now pregnant. Okay, Form 4. I want you to take us through the journey. A lot of girls sometimes have to go through schools. We know things happen. Ngoga amu teenage, ngoga amu. There's so many reasons why teenage pregnancies happen, but so kiune sukulu nkuna, did you tell somebody? How did you manage school and also being expecting mother? And did your parents know? Okay, how did they respond to that?
Okay, so of course now I went to school Form 3. I was performing quite well. Yeah, having been in Pangani and the level of education that we had there, I wasn't struggling in terms of academics. What I was struggling with is this teenage crisis. You want to be, the most popular girl in school. You're the one who, all these funny things. I told you it's a syndrome. A syndrome just means that you cannot explain exactly what sort of behavior, what is that, those aggressive tendencies and all that. So by the time I got to Form 4, and I met, during those days when I was in Pangani, one of my cousins had came to school, to visit me because my parents couldn't visit me. So he came in the company of his friend who was his roommate. And this roommate of his, they visited me in school. So one of these days, as I'm going now, I left Pangani and I'm leaving Kericho to Nakuru, going back to school. Then I meet again this friend to my cousin who I had met earlier on in 2003. And now that is how we started now this, relationship with him. And by the time it got to August of 2006, I went to visit him in Nairobi after we had closed school.
Nelly, go to Yana Chiji, go to Matatu, get to and go to in Nakuru Kitcho.
No, we met in Kericho. I was going to Nakuru.
So Olangarita Ganga.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he proceeded. He was going to Nairobi because he was in school in Nairobi. So back in Nakuru. And then, of course, now that is when he exchanged numbers. He gave me his number clearly. For me, I didn't have a phone. And thereafter is when now we arranged on how we were going to meet. So during the holiday in August is when I went to meet him. And that is when I got pregnant.
So you went to meet him where? Nairobi and Anginyo in Kinyo?
Nairobi.
Okay.
Yeah, in Nairobi. So I got pregnant and I started having these pregnancy symptoms that we all know. First of all, you miss your periods, you start vomiting and all that. And my mom took me to Tenwek, to the hospital. And clearly, the doctor said that I was pregnant. And my mom, she really didn't condemn me as much. She was also, in that state that she's confused. She doesn't know what to do. And she just told me, the last thing I want you to do is do not think of terminating that pregnancy. We will see how we can support you. And my mom she's of very few words. She doesn't talk a lot, but she really was very bothered. And of course, now my dad is the one that I was just wondering how is it gonna be and all that. So my mom, when the schools opened, my mom took me to school because my father wasn't living with us at that time. He was working at Uasin Gishu as an education officer at the Uasin Gishu office. So most of the time we were home with my mom, not my dad. So my mom, during the opening day, she took me to school. And she took me to the head teacher, who was our principal. She's called Madam Nancy Ngeno, who she was our principal at that time, and later on went to Kipsigis. And Madam Ngeno, the first thing she said was, and I still remember, and I think that is what gave me the courage. I still remember she said that each time she looks at me, she sees herself in me. Yeah. And therefore, she was not going to send me away from school. And she kept me in school. She told me, you can just continue with your education. She even made sure that being that, I was pregnant and that dining hall, the way food smells badly, you just throw up, you can't eat. She made sure that even the staff food that the staff teach, our staff, the teachers were eating is what I was being given so that I can eat. And she told me.
So keep komwaji, Nelly, keep komwaji. Your mother, the principal, so you are expecting.
Yes, and that is when she said that.
Yeah.
Each time she looked at me, how I behave.
Did the students know you are expecting? And I'm
at some point they got to know because of the symptoms, and but it is not her who told them. They got to know somehow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and for real, each time I just think about Madam Nancy, I always feel that I'm always indebted to her. That she never saw the pregnancy as an obstacle or to judge me too much. She just kept me in school and she told me, you need to focus, you need to work hard, because the only thing that will help you is your education, nothing else.
So, Nelly, did your mother tell your father and your father?
Well, I'm not sure kama alimwambia ama hakumwambia. The whole time I was in school, and immediately after we finished Form 4, because that was the last time that we were going to do our KCSE. So immediately our KCSE was done. Apparently, like the last weekend to the last paper, I lost my grandfather. So I wasn't told, but after they came for me in school, we buried our grandfather, and immediately he was buried, I just disappeared from home. I just didn't know. I feared my father so much that I just didn't know what he was gonna do with me. So I don't know whether my mom ever. I have never really asked my mom, and I think I should. But I don't know if she ever told him or not. But immediately I came home after KCSE, we buried my grandfather, and I disappeared. So I looked, in other words.
So when you say you disappeared, where did you disappear to? Amu English may disappear, you disappear and go somewhere.
I eloped. So the man who was responsible for my pregnancy took me into his sister's place. Yeah, because in Kericho, that is where their home is. Yeah.
So the man who is responsible. Now
Yes.
you are expecting to is it like where the gunong. So go mutin ip college sister na ngoni. Who are you now?
Alimwambia that I'm going to be his wife, and he had to go and finish his exams, because at that particular time he was also doing his exams, and he had to finish his exams so that now he can come and concentrate on probably taking me to his parents. So the first refuge was at his sister's place, so that I'm not home and he's sure I'm safe.
Exams me last time me format or me form 4
No,
and then me college.
He was in college. He was doing his CPA 6 CPK. CPA.
Oh, okay. So go mutin gap the sister college, the sister ibuaji new ya to go better exams.
Then now he can come and now figure out how things are going to be done, because he knew that the biggest person I feared was my father. So for him to be comfortable wherever he was, he just wanted to be sure that I'm not stressed wherever I am, or I'm not planning on anything, and I'm safe where he can easily call and find out that I'm fine.
So Nelly, the sister, how long did you stay with the sister of Chorwe Ngunguna?
That was in November 26, 2006, up to December. End of December, early January is when now he had finished his exams. He came home for Christmas. Then after Christmas is when he went to introduce me to his parents.
So the sister. So he came to the sister's place in where you are, and then now and then go in Ngonguna.
Now this is my girlfriend and she's pregnant and I want to marry her. And eloped. We literally like eloped.
So
yes.
Oh, okay. And still ingeletoma konai baba nengungis magemwe matep kole kiwane cheptanyo, tedi awako shughulika kutafuta we.
No, I called my mom. I called my mom so that my mom would just know that I'm okay, but I didn't tell her where I was.
Oh, okay. So, and she knew you were expectant. So, tebing yun daw katianit ka pabarte nengage how was it?
Yeah, so kingetata nenkonyo, and then of course nikabaki tu kwao, and then they now started the process of kibage samnyoe tapkat asigitunan, and then I became his wife.
So gigeba goita, did you
yes.
So eventually gigeba goita, so now I na baba nangung. So now you have a baby by this time or no?
No, I gave birth in April 2007.
So if case samnyoe tapkat and then kele kagaba goe. So kill then so kagil then you unda ibitebi kitinyo kon ni jiji anan gyomenya ka olinywa.
Kimatinye kon nenyin, so ki mi singroina.
Sigroina. So kwamutin murenone kay sigroina. Where did you stay?
I used to live with his grandma. It was just next door.
Okay.
So I used to stay with his grandmother.
So basically, these are young people. Husband and wife, and did you do a wedding or?
So according to what we were told at that time, or if it is right, kigiba DC korong.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Amun kikile makibendi koito kotom keratin.
Oh, so ibotun ge kaptisi.
Yes.
So kikiyai tumdong'wong nebo kaptisi.
February 2007, 2nd of February, 9th of February 2007.
Balozi, chamwa atebe Nelly. So Nelly, kageyai KCSE somewhere in November, abwati ale January, February, kokomong results. You're working on your wedding, anan kitunini. So kingemong results, were you surprised or kiboibochi? Atyo kora, like, what next, what followed, anan kibwat ne, anan kile, mabote sukul, angawa focusan na arib lakwenyu akonyu.
So, first of all, I was very disappointed with my results because I got a B minus, but I had kind of expected that I wasn't going to do very well because one of our exams at that time, the biology paper 3 was a question on femur, which is bones, and it was preserved in formalin. So I clearly could not contain myself in that room enye ilikuwa inanuka hiyo formalin. So I did not attempt the femur question. So I did the one in plants. So I got this B minus, and of course, according to our family, my siblings and my mom and my dad, they knew, of course, that was way below what they had anticipated. But all these things collective, that you're pregnant, you're not concentrating in school, and all this. In fact, my father was like, at least she even did well, you know? Yeah, and so my ex-husband, who was responsible, promised that they were going to take me back to school. And for me, it was never a question of I'm not going to go back to school. I always knew I was going to school. Nothing would stop me. A baby cannot stop me. I had all this ambition altogether. Myself, I also don't think I was understanding myself at that particular moment. But one thing I was very certain about was that I knew I wanted to go to school.
So Nelly, kaitebi nguno kaisich lakwet kakeba ukele kakitununis ara makaba kaptisi kakeba koito.
That was 19.
Now you are starting as a family. What exactly were you doing? Kioene nguno, so kongetye karon amu ara inye boiyot netugulel inye itinye lakwet eng yu. So what were you doing? How are you supporting yourselves?
So for him, he got a job in March of the same year, just a month before I delivered. It was exactly 1 month, because I still remember he got a job on the 21st of March of 2007, and I delivered on 22nd. Why I don't forget is because I knew it was exactly 1 month before I delivered. So once he was done with his studies, because he already had up to CP5, he was only waiting for results of CPA 6. He started looking around for a job, and he got a job in March, and he was posted to Mombasa. So I was left at home in his at the parents' place in Kapsoit in Kericho. So that is where I stayed with my mother-in-law and my shosho and my father-in-law until he was able to settle himself in Mombasa. Then that is when we joined him there.
So now you're in Kapsoit, kazi ya nyumbani ama you are just a housewife kumine asole ningolimba Mombasa.
Yeah, I was doing nothing. I mean, the best I could do was just to take care of myself because I was heavily pregnant, and I used to love writing poems. I still have those poems to date that I wrote during that time. Yeah, so that's basically what I used to do, nothing much.
All right, so itebi anyuning yutok and then off to Mombasa, I guess, after koisit lakwet, kagonyor kasi, you went to Mombasa, ibotebi Mombasa. So what did you go and do in Mombasa?
So I went to Mombasa, of course, to join him and give him support as my husband and just stay with him just the way a normal family would stay with him. And of course, now time was moving. My father was becoming impatient that she has not gone to school. Her papers are going to waste. And my father started this kind of pressure, you know, you know, and it now started being an issue that Is it that she doesn't want to go to school herself, or hawataki kumlipia, or what is the challenge? That is what my father was trying to establish. Like if it is an issue of financial or something, then we can all try and see how we can assist. Because the only thing that my father kept telling me, and even those very occasional periods that he would call me because he was extremely disappointed with me. Actually, I remember that at that time, my father said that he never spoke to me for almost 2 years because he was very disappointed that there was a time that he said, when are you going to school? And I just told him when my ex-husband is able to get school fees to take me to school. And he was, we take atuja kukataza ningielegi, you need to come, we passion, not home, relocating home, but let us show a way forward of how you're going to go to school. And of course, I dismissed my father. I was, I was just giving my husband enough support that, I was trying to protect him. I don't know if I was protecting him or I don't know what I was doing, but I actually just told my father, I'll only go to school when he is able to take me to school. So my father, of course, just gave up with me. And
Kongoi Nelly, akase koikure chichi my ex, mongen ale in. Tomo akot keit yotok amu kotokoboiyong'ung chichi, kabe Mombasa, kotokoboiyong'ung. So your father obviously was so upset mang'ololse 2 years, tukyo tugul jo kaneret. Neu yo ikere ile kipkonere kole ngobet cheptonyu kotokomach kwa sukulo. So eventually ko kaotau ng'alal after 2 years. So iwe Mombasa nguno kait Mombasa, how was life? Otinye lakwet ne mining. This is a young family. What did you do in Mombasa? Kawakase boyot kele isire poems anan kiyoe. How was life in Mombasa? Did you eventually go to school or no? And who was taking care of the baby if you were to go to school?
So in Mombasa, life was very difficult. He used to earn very little that couldn't really be enough. I even remember we used to ask for help from several people until, people stopped even picking our calls. And when it got to that, then that is the day I decided I was going to do something about it. So one of those days I just thought about it. We used to live in Mombasa, Kigimenyele Igure Makupa. So Makupa, kuna a street inaitwa Juakali. Juakali has so many garages around that area. There were about 6. And most of those mechanics, I would see, they never really get time to go and eat or even to have a break or to have lunch. So what I decided is I was going to do something about it. So I asked him to buy me a blender, na deep freezer. And of course, he had to take an advance. Akaenda akachukua advance of about 10,000, or it was about 11,000. And remember, that was almost 3/4 of what he used to earn at that time. So he bought me this blender and he bought me the deep freezer. My intention was I was going to be blending juice and selling it to that the mechanics in those garages, because there were so many around that area and many mechanics. So, and apart from that, I also started cooking mandazi in the morning. I would wake up very early in the morning, cook mandazi, take it to the shop in the nearest shop there, so that by the time watu wanaamka, they can have something to buy. Yeah. And then now I would go buy my maembe in Kongowea. I used to go to Kongowea at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. I still remember. And Juakali is one of those places I'm yet to settle scores with. It gives me very deep emotions about it.
Koin Nelly, ribun ngo lakwet ingele ngile kenget 4:30 komeche sikwo boyot. Who is taking care of your baby now?
So
Anan
when
kicheng lakwet?
no, kwenda Kongowea, you would be back by about 5:30, or by around a few minutes to 6, like 5:45. So that is when he's leaving for work. So mimi nisharudi nimefika. So yeye ndio amebaki na mtoto. And then now during the day, after I blend those juice and I have to go and hawk around, there was a neighbor who she was called Shiro. She had just cleared school with me. So I talked to her that since she was just staying at her brother's place and she wasn't doing anything, if she can be helping me with the baby between 11 and 3 when I'm hawking, then I can be paying her 1,000 per month. And that is what she did. She actually used to help me with the baby as I hawk. Once I'm done, I take the baby and I go back with him. And yeah, that's how we survived for almost a year. And I
So-
actually used to make about 1,000 shillings per day as profit.
Oh, so you made profit out of it in paisyon niya hawking na kangunget.
Yeah, I used to do juice. In fact,
So
today
how long
I
did
a
you
lot
do
of very
this?
nice juice.
How long did you do this?
For close to a year, about 8 months, 9 months there. Then he was given a transfer to Kisumu branch. So we had to leave Mombasa. And during that time, I think that is now when it was now about when am I going to go to school? It's now me who had started feeling the pressure of, I need to go to school. And he still couldn't, afford it at that particular time. And now I had to go back and ask my father for help.
So kobe Kisumu, so nyibi jeng baba nung konda in school in Kisumu, and then where did you go to school or what happened after kobe Kisumu?
Balozi, maybe I would like to ask Nelly, ke mentioning something, kemwa like konin deep emotions juakali Mombasa. I just want to prompt, I don't mean to, give you or make you emotional, but I would just love to hear why. Why does it give you deep emotions, and what happened really?
It was a very difficult life. It
Okay.
was more of a slum, like a semi-slum. I wouldn't say a proper slum, but it was more of a semi-slum. I just can't imagine that at that age, you're 20 and you have to hawk to be able to feed yourself. It was hard.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
All
you
right.
made it. You made it.
Yeah, so anyway, kaiwe Kisumu nguna, so now you're in Kisumu. What did you do? So kabe ngalega hawking it kangunget kaimete ang fridge it kangungi lioji. So you sold it or what happened?
We sold everything. I mean, we just sold everything in Mombasa. And during that time, now that I was feeling pressured myself, I actually applied KMTC myself. I remember calling my mom, asked her for a few shillings, and she gave me money. I applied KMTC, and I got a letter. So there's no way I could go back to my father to ask him to take me to school. Which school? So I went back to my father with a KMTC letter.
So KMTC nguna Nairobi no.
Nairobi, yes, Nairobi campus, because I had applied a course which was called neurophysiology technology. Remember, all my life, I had wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. So because I didn't hit the sun, I decided this course looks like I was gonna hit the moon or the stars. So I applied for neurophysiology technology at KMTC and I was accepted because I was qualifying for the course.
So Nelly mi Kisumu nguna, so what happened? Kaiwe Kisumu, the baby is here, mzee amepata kazi Kisumu, umeapply sasa Nairobi, and then what happened?
So I actually didn't make it even to go to Kisumu because having left Mombasa and he has to go to Kisumu, then there has to be transition again. So the stopover is home, his parents' home. So I have to stay there for a while. Then he has to go and settle himself again in Kisumu before we can join him. But during this time, it is the same time that I'm supposed to report back to report to school at KMTC. So then I had to leave the baby with my mother-in-law and go to school. So my father paid half of the amount, and he sourced money, I think, from his relatives, and he was able to raise the other half. So I got to be paid for tuition, and he couldn't afford to pay for the accommodation at that time. So one of our neighbors from where I come from now in Bomet, she was doing physiotherapy at that time, and I knew her. My mom actually happens to have known her mother. So we called the mother, and the mother connected me to Jackie, and Jackie hosted me in her room. So now school fees having been paid, and I'm now in school, accommodation is sorted. Those days, KMTC, it is not like today that you have to buy food separately and pay for accommodation separately. For those who are on the regular students, everything was paid, includes the room and the meal card. For us, it was having paid school fees, you have to pay something extra for accommodation and food. But when you pay for accommodation, it included a meal card. So somehow there was just a way we could get meal cards, and that is how I survived in that during that year.
So itebi ing Nairobi kotianit nguno kitestai ing KMTC for how long?
For 3 years. So by the time I got to second year, he had been promoted. At least he could earn quite a reasonable amount. So he paid all my school fees for second year, paid accommodation, my pocket money and everything. He literally took care of everything from second year up to third year when I graduated in 2011. Because I had gone to KMTC in 2008, up to 2011 is when I graduated from KMTC with a diploma in neurophysiology technology.
So Nelly, yetar school now what happened? Kinyoru kasi anan yenyoru kasi iweka ono anan kiwa ono after that?
So neurophysiology at that time was a very new course at KMTC, and they were just trying to build capacity. And there were very few places that we could get jobs. And I was in the second class of the neurophysiology. So the first class, most of them had already been absorbed in the big hospitals where the equipments, because neurophysiology basically was to do EEG. EEG is called electroencephalograms. That is for patients who have psychosis, who are epileptic. We study the patterns, the waves, to see if what is causing those kind of things like seizures or people who have sleep issues. Yeah, so that is what neurophysiology was about. And it was these big hospitals, Nairobi Hospital, Aga Khan, and the rest that had that kind of facilities. And the first class most of them hadn't been employed. So for us who were in the second class, were actually almost rendered like, you're not going to have any jobs, you're not going to do anything. And this time, things had started changing, and that is, I just decided, okay, well, let me take a break. So I got my second baby at that time. By the time I was doing my third year in neurophysiology, in July, I was already like about 3 months pregnant into the second pregnancy. So I just took rest, gave birth to my second baby in January of 2012. And yeah, by that time, after the 2012 issues, now marital issues started. Yeah, those small issues, and you want to go back to school again, because I was seeing a scenario whereby I have done my course and I'm going back to where we were. Like, I cannot be able to support him. I cannot be able to help him. And I'm not also building myself in terms of my career. So, I mean, after the baby, then we had an opportunity. The class that was behind us, like the fourth class, because right now the neurophysiology technology was already scrapped off from KMTC, because the fourth class, I think they went to the ministry, complained about not having lecturers and I don't know what, and they were converted to MIS. So a call came that for those of us who had done neuro and would want to convert to medical imaging sciences, which is radiography, because we were in the same class for the first year. Then when we got to second year, we split. They went to radiography as we went to neuro. So there was a call from our HOD that for those of you, all the 3 classes who had graduated with neuro, if any one of you wants to come back, then it is this is the opportunity, and he will start from second year. So of course that is what I fronted to him, and of course it didn't go well. It was more of, no, do you really want to be a family person, or where unataka tu kusoma? So it became a conflict of what are your aspirations, what is it that you value most, and all that. And of course now that is where the whole division started from.
So Nelly, itinye nguno lagok aeng, makwa agenge, so itinye lagok aeng ko akimeche iwe sukul kora. So emergency method in all of you Google. I'm sure that is the question negative for young women and you know, so get my metalogo and guy my school going so because you want to go to Nairobi, see method in all.
So the going back to school did not meant that I had to relocate to Nairobi with the kids, probably get a house girl so that I can be going to school and coming back home at the end of the day. And that is exactly what happened because that was just the beginning of the fracas. It was a little bit, you know, and eventually he accepted and I came to Nairobi with the kids and a house girl, and then I started school, and he was left in Kisumu. So he used to come every weekend or maybe after every 2 weeks to come and see us as I try and, you know, pursue another career because the earlier one was clearly never going to be of help, at least at that particular time.
So the first whatever course you did didn't help you much. So
Yeah.
in Nairobi. So how long, you know, and how long did it take?
So it was 2 years. We were offered an admission for 2 years. That is between September 2012 up to July 2014, which we graduated in December 2014. So I used to live in Gong and I used to commute to Kenyatta. And by then my son had already also started school. Even when he was in Kisumu, he had started school, but the young girl had not started school. So this second year, yeah, he paid everything. And by the time we got to third year, things were getting more tough. And our marriage was clearly not working for so many reasons, which probably I wouldn't want to discuss a lot, but it wasn't working. So by the time we got to third year, schools are about to open. And I asked him so he hasn't sent me school fees. And he just told me that he's not going to pay. And I was like, okay, fine. Then what do I do from here? Where else to go? Home to my father.
So in iweka and then
Yeah,
some you know, there is two different things. Imuji onge ila ngot ko mata imaji toreto ko kawe or kawe ba some kondo satastai. Which one did you do?
Now, the many reasons why our marriage was not working, of course, led to him refusing to pay the third year school fees. And I packed and left in 2012 because he told me just jipange tu vile utaona vile utafanya na shule na watoto. And I woke up and went back home because, I mean, there is nowhere else I could have gone.
What about school? School and Andoma.
That was now the beginning of the third year.
So you were what about school? Give me the school and Angelia.
It was a week to opening school, probably a week and a half. So I went back home, and the first place I went to was at his parents' place. And I, of course, went to tell my father-in-law everything that had been happening and all that, and nobody believed me. And my father-in-law actually did not believe whatever I was telling him initially because it didn't seem that it was not true, you know, because they were quite gross. And he was like, no, that is not my son. And you know, when you go back home to your parents, who are now his parents, who are now my parents, as I believe should be, for me, I felt it should have been a fair hearing. Like, you know, yeah, we have heard you, then maybe both of us to be called to come and explain ourselves and all that. But that did not happen. He took sides to his son. And of course, now where else? My refuge would be home to my parents.
So iweka so if ketak tena nonga lumwango you know ngele kya US, this is not the first time.
Yeah.
There was that first time naginget nguli nagiwa, and then the second time, now the third time. How were you received at home?
Now, by the time I'm getting home, I'm pregnant, the third child.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I get home and, you know, my father is a true Kalenjin man. For them, I think they believe that you do not quarrel a pregnant woman you wait until they deliver, then we can have these discussions. But of course, all through, my father, both his parents and my parents had been in the picture. They knew what we had been going through together. And I think for me, it was more of my brothers and my dad called me for a meeting, and they just asked me, what is it that you want us to do for you?
So kewe Nelly kewe ak lagok anan kewe kityongon kemo lagok ko aeng plus you are expectant, and then what happened?
I go with my children. There is no way I can leave my children. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went with them home, and when I got home, so my dad and my brothers asked me like, what is it that you want to be? I mean, what do you want us to do for you? Because now you're home, Ibo ko isila kwetapkwe. So what do you want us to do for you? And I told my father, the only thing I want is, I want you to pay for me my school fees. I go back to school. I go and finish my education. My mom to help me take care of my daughter. By that time, she was 1 year, 5 months. My girl today is 9 years, 9.5 years. So 1 year and 5 months, of course, she had to stay with my mom. Then my son was had been in a very good school in Nairobi. He could at least speak Kiswahili, because most of the school, most of the time they used to speak in English. So he couldn't fit in that local school at home. So my dad told me that I'll figure out what to do. So let me talk to your sister who is in Eldoret. I'll pay the school fees if she can be able to take care of my son. And that is what happened. So for that 1 year, when I was now going back to finish my 3rd year, I'm pregnant. My father paid for my hostel in school at KMTC and paid school fees. And then I also applied part of the school fees. I applied to Funzo Kenya. There was a scholarship that used to be given. I mean, not scholarship, it's help. It's this help money that you can get as a loan. So I applied and I was given 60,000. So the balance my father paid, and he paid the hostel for me, and he used to pay for my son's school fees, and my sister used to take care of my son in Eldoret. That is for a year. So immediately I was done with school. Then of course I went to pick my kids and started life on my own.
So kaitar sukul nyo korom ne ginyoru kasi, what happened nyo? Kaiwe sukul kakotoretin sigik, what happened?
Balozi, maybe
Yes.
before that, Kamija Tebe Nelly, Matakole, the family never your ex-husband, let us take the children and much trag slago. Correct.
Well,
That
there
was not a conversation.
there was some kind of coldness from both families. No one really talked about anything. Even to date, there has still been no discussions to date. Yeah. And that is like 9 years down the line.
Balozi, Toski acknowledge.
Yeah, so o sea, te está.
Kongoi Nelly, safarit kabisa, safari nejeribi, safari ne oye hatine magere geite tayu samu every story gotine. Kongoi Nelly for sharing, and thanks for coming to the show. Kongoi big agere big tetigo subet ingebeber weke terchin jam big mi show ingem pauta brani. Agere Dori to me Dorcas all the way from Gebeberta. I think Bunwer yet again. Agnelli, Kongoi Dorcas and McTony following from Adelaide, South Australia. Kongoi McTony, Koitalel Samoe. Agongoi Koitalel Arab Samoe. Ngolemi Engembauta Brani. Ayabei Bridget watching live from Alcasham. A story is reminded me. I have a miserable Kongoi. Ngami Jigora. Negalago Buati Sabarini, Kongoi Ayabi. Preached all the way from Saudi Arabia, David Kiprono. Kalo watching and listening from Baringo, Mogotio, Kongo Chitab, Mogotio. Kibana Julius, Kongoi, following from slopes of Mount Kenya, Kirinyaga County, Kongoi Chitab Kirinyaga County. Kongoi Big Target Komie Likana, Kongoi Chepkirui, the story is very inspiring, a true icon of no challenges can determine Kongoi Shadrach, Willie Koros, Dan Kandie, following from Adelaide, South Australia, Ian Kipchumba Sulu, Kongoi Ian Kipchumba Sulu ak biik chechang chagere kako Abu Shadrach Sang live from South Australia. Kongoi Abu. Kongoi Stephen Kitur watching live from Nairobi County. Parapa Koni Ronoh kale following from Chuja. Kongoi Chitab Chuja kale big sister Ellen Jeruyat following live from following live. Kongoi big chok amete tasom olimi ngebeberta eng saishekab koraki ngimi oleb Adelaide ngimi kebeberwek chebe terchin Western Australia kebeberwek mwawech ile inyorchine chano eng kemboutab rani sikosikchi at ketesetai ak sabarit ninyo keityin so mwawech shan shoti ta joronok amu sabarini kimi aaf nebo sabarit ak kekere tiketine sabarit karibu sait agenge nemi tai so amete tasom ale laikan Shian ako ngetesetai kora ko tikibwatwok akobo Tolcom ko notok ay boisiet ani Tolcom ngimakchinigei ibir simet olimbo gaa imakchini ong'alal ak biikuk eng olimbo area ko Tolcom ko notok amwawech kampunitab Tolcom kole 0.25 per minute. Igere ile chepkondok choche ngeringen. Koi chito nebo storing, koi chito nechame ong'alal ak biik eng olimbo ground, kokibwatwech kampunitab Tolcom kole Tolcom kotoretin ong'alal ak chamanik kwak. Ako Tolcom ko kampunit ne sponsor nebo program nenyo. So chi age tugul ngimi ole imi ngimi emetab Australia, emotinwekab sang, ngimi olimbo nyumbani, ngimi olabo Eldoret, ak itinye hustle neng'ung, ak itinye kiy neimwoe kokeyai kele chitab kalenjin koui komwaitagei anan ui ngoyai hustle icheng'ech kora sikemwaitet akere Princess Betsy kale this lady is real strong and determined. I wish many young girls would listen to her. Kongoi Princess Akitur Sami, great story. Winfred Serem, Kongoi Winfred. Ruby Kendagor, Queen Ruby Kendagor watching from St. Louis, US. Thank you for your program, very inspiring. Kongoi Ruby Kentagor, Nigito Tagenge, ak Daktari Solomon Kentagor, all the way from St. Louis. Kosubet eng kemboutab rani. Ngotiketestai ke laikan, ngotiketestai ke shian, sikosikchi kinetkei kibagenge. Karibu balozi.
Kongoi Osea nekit sakurin Osea kokol lakini kotomo ko kakebwa Nelly kakebwa kaitu nguno in ang nito ketarate kosit nebo oeng ako kemwa ile koiwe Nairobi mongen ko kinyoru kasi ko ketar kosit kong'ung'et ak akere uni kakoba ng'alek kameche kityo ateb Nelly ale ngo kakisubin nguni kang tai yo imwa ile X mongen ale kiotare yuto yu matakolipan chepkondok ko kibek yotok anan what happened, you know, ako kinyoru kasi ko kaitar ako abwati ale katokoi expectan lakwet nebo somok ko what happened, kinyoru kasi ko ketar sukul ako kakolipanun sigik amu matakolipanun chichi ko kilya Nelly?
So by the time I got to third year, yeah, kilipan Miss Papa, and I also applied for the HELB loan, which it paid 60,000. My father paid the balance and my hostel. So of course it was not an easy time that now you have to balance between your classes, your emotional, your marriage is failing, and it was not that easy. And being the person that I am myself, it was very difficult for me to handle the fact that I wasn't even staying with my children at that time. So the only thing is I decided that I was going to simplify my life. I said first things first. What is the most urgent? The most urgent is to first have a safe delivery, and secondly, complete school, and not only complete school, and pass. So I read. I used to read up to midnight until usingizi inipite. And out of our class, we were about nine girls during that time. Those who came back, we were 17 of us, and 9 of us were female, and 3 of us passed, which I was one of them. So of course, having done medical imaging sciences, which is radiography, it is a very competitive course. So getting a job was not hard. It was just easy. By the time I finished my exams in July, even before the results were out, they were hospitals, these smaller hospitals that were already fronting that if there is a student who wants to come and work immediately after, then we can be able to take that person, and especially from our campus, because our training was really good. So I got a job at Langata Hospital, and it was my first job, and I was being paid 75,000 as a first job. So that is now how my life started looking up. And, having, the determination, I think it now got to me that, you know what, I'm on my own and I need to work hard for these children. So what I did immediately in July, once I was done with my exams, results were out by August. So I applied for higher national diploma, medical imaging sciences in ultrasound, and I was accepted. So again, between July and September, I went back to do higher diploma, but it was a part-time course. So you could work and go to class later in the evening. And that is how I managed within 1 year. I had done both a higher diploma in health systems management and the higher diploma in ultrasound. It is a program that is integrated, both the HSM and the higher diploma in ultrasound. Because at that time, radiography being that it was, yes, it was not difficult to get a job, but it is not what would have sustained me. Because today's very date, what has really sustained me is the ultrasound. So once I was done with ultrasound, then I was unstoppable. And in between, when we were having our higher diploma in ultrasound, one of my classmates was called Kagiri. He used to work for Radiation Protection Board. And there was a study that was coming up, which was the National TB Prevalence Survey. And he was one of the task force members who were going to be part of the team, because the National Prevalence TB Survey was geared, it was more of chest X-ray as a point of care, or that was the first diagnosis for anybody suspected as a screening tool. So being that I was a radiographer, then I was taken by KMRI. So I got a job with KMRI. After immediately I finished the KMTC one, I went to Langata Hospital for 2 months. And since I wanted to, bring back my children and start life, so I applied for a job in Tenwek Hospital where I had done my internship. So I took my kids and we stayed there for 1 year. And,
where Tenwek and Nelly mongen ingele katokoi expectan is mongen kuko isich lakwet nguna nandoma.
I gave birth during my attachment in Tenwek in March.
Okay.
Internship, yeah.
So ibinam lakwet kongung nekamielderet akimut kwa Tenwek matimetochi your sister.
Niliwachukua wote, yeah, from my mom and from my sister, because now I had a job, I could be able to sustain myself. So I went to Tenwek one as a softer landing ground, because nyumbani haikuwa mbali sana. If I don't have food, I can easily get milk from home, food from home as I work. So I stayed in Tenwek for about 8 months. And once we were done with the higher diploma, then the KMRI job as a radiographer to participate in the National TB Prevalence Survey came, and we did that for 1.5 years. That was between 2015 and 2016. And that was probably my breakthrough, because we used to be paid 5,000 per day. So every 10 days, I used to get 50,000. And it changed my life completely. Like,
Meanwhile, Nelly, sorry to take you back, and so kakolya kakobek ngoliot kay mata kowek wirikin yan kimi Kisumu anan kibekyo.
Everybody kept quiet. I think both families are just too proud, or I don't know. Nobody fronted to try and ask what is the issue. My father here is clearly blaming me. I need me, you, and all that. So swanging again. My father-in-law on the other side is supporting his son. And, we were just left there in between. And me and him, of course, we had heated bile. Nobody wanted to talk to one another. And along the way, there was a time I went to Kisumu. I had gone for, it's called the Radiographer Scientific Conference, which happens every 2 years. So at some point it was in Kisumu. So one day I'm in Kisumu during the conference and I happened to see him. And I think it just reminded me of, I felt so bad about the whole thing. It's been a year. He never cares about his kids. He doesn't ask about them. Or, we just don't have this. Nobody is really trying to salvage anything. And I think I saw him where he went to, because I think he had moved from where we used to live. And where he went to, I went to the hotel where we were having the gala dinner. It was called a gala dinner. And I could just feel this anger boiling up and boiling and boiling. So I called one of my friends to try and talk to him, like to distract myself. But he wasn't available, my best friend. I called her on phone. Apparently, I don't know, that day she didn't pick. And when she didn't pick, now that hiyo hasira ikaendelea, nikachukua lift from where I was and went back to where I saw him. And then of course I got there, I saw him and we had this exchange. And he really beat me hard. He even broke my hand, my finger on that particular day. And I mean, we never. A week later, it was physical fighting because finger. Yeah. Yes, and like a week later, then I received my divorce papers. I'm in Tenwek, I'm on duty. Someone calls me, I'm a court clerk. Yeah, so I received my divorce papers and I told him, well, it's fine, you can bring them.
So divorce in the
Yes, he's the one who filed for divorce. So when he filed for this divorce, for me, I was like, I mean, if that is what you want, then I'll consent to it. So I signed it and gave him the papers, the court clerk, to take them back. And of course, the case started in 2014. After the fight, the mention was about in April the following year. The court case didn't take too long because I filed a cross petition and I had proof of everything of what had gone wrong. And we were given the divorce in 2016, 29th of March 2016 is when the ruling was done. And
so Nelly, what about the custody of Lago? And what happened? You remained with the custody of Lago?
So what happens is nowadays, unlike Kitambo, these divorce cases, they have been split into 4. You file a divorce case separate, that is you and your wife, you separate. You also file a different court case for the children. You file for matrimonial property and also for bride price. So when he filed for divorce, of course, they said that you cannot be filing divorce unless you're asking for custody. And you cannot also have custody without divorce. So after the ruling, it was indicated in our ruling that issues with children to be filed in a proper court. So none of us has ever bothered to file because those kids, all of them were underage. It was more likely that I'm the one who was going to remain with them.
So anyway, so that's why now katilen at ke ex ex from now because bin among it panda. So anyway, nyoru papers tukul what happened after that?
So while I was still in school, I told you we were in class with one of our radiation protection board officers, and he offered us the opportunity to go and participate in the TB prevalence survey. So clearly then I had to leave Tenwek and I took up the job at KMTC, which was a contract for 1.5 years because it was a survey for that duration of time. And that is where I said, that is where my breakthroughs started from, because one, I got to travel a lot because we used to travel. We traveled to different areas in the country for almost a year. For me, it was more of healing. And then 2, it was also, I got to meet people who are diversified from different walks of life, and you start seeing life differently. And apart from that, also, I got an opportunity to do my first community, giving back to our community, because there was a time the randomized selection of the sites where we were going to visit. I happened to have come across a document, and I saw that one of them was Kinyelwet, where I went to school in primary, Kiburen Kinyelwet. So that is where I went to. And I requested our PI, the principal investigator, if he could allow our team to go to that place. And I actually hosted the whole team. My father was able to host us at home, the 14 of us, the whole team, and we would go there for a week and all that. And that is where I started being very passionate about community service, because I could see the way everyone in our community was happy that she has, the person that we thought was lost. Remember, during my teenage life, everybody in the village knew me to be a very rude girl who doesn't, listen. And of course, it also didn't help, because my father is not the kind of person, probably like me, he's not the kind of person to keep quiet with a mistake, not because he wants to hide, but he's trying to advise other people and even tell them that, you know what, don't be like her, she's not listening, and I became the talk of the village. So this time now I'm back a different person. Of course, most of them knew that I had come back home, but now this time I'm coming back with a positive, agenda to come back and, have our people screened for TB and all that. And that is where my community service actually started from.
Kongoi, osea, amache atajen osea, si tebutik che itinye, siketeseta unless Janet has something. Kogere ko you community, you now doing community service or community work. Osea, you are muted, osea.
Introducing Tocom. Introducing Tocoms, the easy way to call Africa. Enjoy clear voice calls to Kenya from 5 cents per minute and Zimbabwe from 25 cents per minute. The best part is that the receiver doesn't require mobile data. Call everyone with group calls of up to 5 people. New customers get 10 minutes absolutely free when they top up using our easy top-up options. Download Tocoms today and stay connected.
Kongoi kasubik jak tugul che isubechin kebeberwek tugul chemi emetab Kenya, chemi emetab Australia, chekakomwa kole makiruitosi kisub sabaritab Nelly kong'ete katoi eng olin bo kakilen kapkeny ole kokwet kai akoi kimi kakeitu kimi county nebo Nairobi. Kongoi ameche tarecognizen biik, akere biik chetukomi, akere biik cheingianisho eng saishekab koraki kitinye toot kimi episode number 34 kitinye toot netinye sabarit kabisa nekonin kamang'unet. Ngotko konekitit konait eng olobo mashinani ikere ile kakomech konenetin ng'onyu ketinye toot as netinye nekibun maisha kabisa nekibun sabarit nekorom bandanyi kimi half nebo sabarini. Akere obat chebo kongoi tapsei kale kongoi ngole mi akere weekly fruiter Silas Kilimo kale inspiring story encouraging and touching all the same time. Kongoi Silas Kilimo all the way from Meru. Dan Chirchir kale so touching. Kongoi Dan Chirchir chitab Kapseret county nebo Amanda Gofen Katu kale so inspiring, nothing is permanent, it shall come to pass. God as the final say. Kongoi bicho chekakocherokis kongoi. Ameche kora sikyi kotukoityi biik alak kocherokis biik alake kokakisom kityo kele share ak ilaikan ak kora ak isubscriben. Kitinye YouTube nenyo nebo Igere Nee Chitab Kalenjin wi kityo yumbo YouTube ak isubscriben YouTube ak ikomentan ak ishare sikosikyi kora sikeibu amu kimi episode number 34 ak kebendi kabisa kimi kabisa so kosinyoru tetutik chechok tugul ketinye YouTube nenyo nekile Igere Nee Chitab Kalenjin ak ketinye pageit kora, pageit nebo Facebook nebo Igere Nee Chitab Kalenjin. Laikan pageit ak ishare kora sikosikyi kobit anan koityi biik alak konai kole kitinye tetutiani bo Igere Nee Chitab Kalenjin nekiibu kebunu takwek cheterchin ak kimutu biik chekonin kamang'unet eng betusiek tugul. So kongoi Nelly, kongoi sabaring'ung tinye kabisa ameche awech kongoi kora balozi kongoi Janet kaonam abanda Nelly kakinyorun imi KMTC koi lecturer nebo KMTC ngebeberta nimbo Nairobi tos imwawech kwa ufupi anan biik cheisubech ing kemboutab rani ki amu kiekundo ano anan how did you end up being a lecturer nebo KMTC ngebeberta nimbo Nairobi?
Okay, thank you, Jose. So, of course, after Cambry and the survey was done, I got a job at Aga Khan University Hospital, Nairobi, as a sonographer. Sonographer go kia ultrasound ya pregnancies for pregnant women, thyroid, blood vessels. Chita yetu langi gogas ultrasound. A sonographer is someone who does ultrasound. So niliandikwa kazi Aga Khan in 2016 in May, immediately after the survey. And 6 months down, there was an advert in the papers that they wanted medical imaging sciences lecturers. And I applied for it and I got the job. I did the interview, and by that time I had started my bachelor's degree in September in radiotherapy. Radiotherapy it is tuandamo wasagilele ngabakebel chito netinye cancer. Kokebel is radiotherapy. So in September, when I was in Aga Khan, I had already enrolled at Jomo Kenyatta University, that is JKUAT, for a bachelor's in radiotherapy option. And by the time the interview was being done, then they also were recruiting lecturers who would be teaching radiotherapy. And being that at that particular time, I was in the pioneer class of the radiotherapy students at JKUAT. So being that there had been no other, there were only two of our colleagues, radiotherapists, who were our lecturers, but they were both working at Kenyatta, who had already qualified with some qualification in radiotherapy. So we had to, I was taken on merit on the consideration of radiotherapy. So that is how I ended up being a lecturer at KMTC. And they also gave me an opportunity to complete my studies. And that was in 2017. So I've been a lecturer at KMTC for the last 4 years. And apart from that also, I'm also a senior sonographer at the Aga Khan Executive Clinic, that is in Westlands. And at the moment, I'm also a collaborator with Cambry. I'm participating in a clinical trial, DAWA, a drug that is under clinical trial at the moment for sickle cell anemia. And I'm a sonographer in the team. That is how I'm collaborating. So I'll be doing what is known as transcranial Dopplers for the study that is during the survey. And yeah, basically that is what I do now. And it has not been easy. I have also worked at Nairobi Hospital. There was a time I used to work like 5 jobs. I even used to have, those people who talk badly, that they say, she really works so hard that at a but I had to make ends meet. I had to make sure I have taken my kids to a relatively good school, in my opinion, better than where I went. And it had to call for me to work day and night. I still remember in 2017, I worked 24 nights out of 30 days. And working at night doesn't mean that I'm not working during the day. I'm working during the day in a different job. I used to work 5 jobs. So I would transition from another one to another one to another one to another one. And that is when I also got to buy my first car. And it helped, with my family, and also with the transitioning, because my car had literally become my wardrobe, because that is where I would change, have change of clothes for a whole week. And yeah, that is it. That is how I got to
Osea, kotomo itep tebutiet nebo oeng Osea, kemwa Nelly ile imi sukul iyoe kasisiek 5, cham kingen achek somok ngoli mongen 5, ko mongen ale kinyorchin ano time, but God bless you because you are able to do that. tebutik oeng cho meche atebenin. Liponi ng'o sukul nguno amu kele mi sukul eng yu, who is paying school, and number 2, ribun ng'o lagok yoe kasisiek mut.
Okay, so number 1, who was paying my school fees? Kulipiwa school fees iliisha na diploma in medical imaging. For my ultrasound, I was working at Tenwek, so I used to pay my own school fees and pay school fees ya watoto, because at that time my son was in Tenwek. They used to pay like 18,000 in a term, so that was very affordable. And a few well-wishers, I actually got one of my friends who offered to pay for me ultrasound, and he paid 40,000. So out of the 126,000, personally, I paid 80,000 within that 1 year. And then now for the degree at JKUAT, initially I paid everything in the first year. In the second year, my dad chipped in. He paid for me, I think, about 35,000. And at some semester in between, my sister also chipped in like 15,000. And that was a total of like 50,000 as grants that I was given, not to refund. But JKUAT was very expensive. It was 75,000 per semester, and it was a tri-semester. So per year, I was required to pay 225,000 for 2 years. And I managed to pay, and that is why I was able to, that is why I was juggling all these jobs all over to be able to pay the school fees, my kids, myself. And yeah, all this time, who was taking care of my kids? My house girl.
Your house girl. Okay, so kongoi. Ose atestai teite.
Kepire kasisiek chechang kabisa kemi emetab sang, lakini nga mi aselai kora emetab Kenya cheyoe kasisiek chechang. So kongoi Nelly, atinye tebut karibu somok Nelly. Tebutiet netai ko kemwawech ile at least you are working hard at least sikonyor lagokuk a relative school, a better school than kewe inendet. What does that mean? Amu kangimwaet atkai tai ko kisomane schoolishek ku State House Girls, kisomane Pangani Girls. Which are these schools che igere ile mi olimbo emetab Kenya neimeche sikong'et nini chesomanie lagokuk? Questions tebutiet nebo aeng Nelly, ngap kwagere most of the nini neng'ung imi ak tuktukit, imi ak motorbike, so ko notok neko attractan attention nenyu ale ara ngap tos kasit age motorbike ne kwagere ne ngap ibinotin olimbo emetab Kenya. So tebutiet nebo somok ko nini Nelly, probably kakenyoru a privilege imwawech akasa angot kaimwa bimwa kosit nengalen amwa ko Teresa Ninganendet. So ameche imng'ololchi bikyok probably ak kosubkei ak different kinds of courses chotok kiyai amu most of ngeba nursing kityo. So takanai through. Karibu Nelly.
Kotomo inyo Nelly, ko osea ameche sinde in pikipikit ingele inye ko kikwerie bodaboda, lakini uni nekikwerie Nelly ko nobo racing nacham akere ngolin nobo Formula 1. Mongen siborwech ing yo ingele ter pikipikit bodaboda ak pikipikit no kwerie Nelly. Nelly komeche kotateschi ale, do you do it for fun anan ikwerie imitei cham ngoleb America komi chekelen motorbike association, ikwerie for an association anan amu agere kabisa kelachkei imi kabisa nakai ma bodaboda ni uni ki age ne. So testai mwaiwech, kongoi.
Okay, so to start with Hosea's questions about school, well, I was privileged to go to good schools, which I agree, I did. But I've always had a slogan that if my parents at that particular time were able to take me to good schools, then I should be able to raise the bar even higher. And how we grew up in our family, even the whole, like in our village, if today you are to ask about my father, I think anything that anybody can associate with him is education, because he's been very instrumental in changing people's lives with his own with his own educational journey, having started his journey at 42 is when he started his bachelor's degree, and today he has a PhD. So schools, for me, I value education so much. And as you've heard in my story, despite everything else, the only focus, the only thing that I never stopped doing was going to school. And to be honest, that is what has really changed my life. At the moment, I'm enrolling, I have a letter already from the University of Nairobi for my master's in health economics and policy. And that is what I'm going to be starting this year in September. And where my kids go to school, they go to an 844 system, but kind of like an integrated higher, it's a CBC school that by the time the government was adapting CBC, they already had been doing CBC. So for me, it is a school that I would believe is, it's more of, if anyone was to benchmark CBC, I think it is the epitome of CBC, and that is Nova Pioneer. That is where I chose to take my kids, because then for me, I value education in the sense that, one, even if you were to get the same grades, what has helped me probably even during my journey of resilience is exposure. How I was able to get that exposure from State House, living in State House, knowing that there is another different life apart from just being in the village, knowing that you have to work hard. And for me, I hold education very dear to my heart, and that is why I'm even a lecturer. I teach, I transfer the same kind of knowledge that I have, because it is a testimony to me that the only thing, and to be very honest, the only thing that has really changed my life, or what has gotten me to where I am today, is education. It didn't matter whether I had all these babies in school or not. I mean, it doesn't stop anything. It just didn't stop anything, because the focus was I needed to get to where I wanted to be. So about the bikes, I do for fun. Life has become better. I mean, clearly. So I do for fun. And at some point, I used to have, naturally, my personality, I would fall under what is known as an ENTJ. And ENTJs are people who are strong-willed, they're energetic, they're very efficient, and sometimes we can be loners. We can be overbearing, according to how maybe people describe. Because once I set my target, this is where I want to go, there is nothing that can stop me completely. So being that I am not so inclined to groupings, I get exhausted with you know, the way people just do things aimlessly. For me, it has to be something that has an end game. It has to be something that are we improving ourselves? Is it something that is helping me to be better? Is it giving back to the community? Like at the moment, I joined Rotary, and I'm a Rotarian. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Kitengela, where we also do a lot of community work. And now the biking, I do it for fun, as I have said. Sometimes I find it hard to talk to people so much about my own issues, because sometimes I feel like people don't understand. So biking for me has brought a lot of healing. It's like therapy. Whenever I get onto that bike and I just feel like, you know, freedom and everything is just good, life is good. And I also wanted to challenge myself. Personally, I get tired of stagnating. I mean, if there's anything I can learn new, like now the bike, I already learned the bike. It's more of, you know, just riding, then what? And that is why I want to ride. I actually want to ride the whole of Africa in the coming, like in 2 years or 3 years, still planning. I want to ride the whole of Africa, and specifically to raise awareness for cancer. Because what happens is that most of our patients who we treat for any type of cancer are late stage disease, that is stage 3, stage 4. 90% of people in Africa, the whole of Africa, is a late stage disease. So for me, I decided that I want to use this biking, which is a new skill, to be able to raise awareness and to promote screening. Because not so many people, if we could have screening before it gets to that level, or just periodic checkups that people can embrace, wellness checkups, then we would be able to arrest most of these diseases before they progress to that level. So that is why I'm biking. And I actually, was doing it for fun initially. And then I was like, I mean, why am I doing it for fun? Who is it benefiting? Okay, well, I have the skill now, then what? So that is what I'm planning in the next few years. And about the courses, Hosea talked about nursing. I know most people, Kitambo people used to associate KMTC to just clinical medicine, nursing, and pharmacy. KMTC has so many courses, so many of them, including even one of them that right now, I'm also doing a certificate course in echocardiography. Echocardiography is this specialization in cardiac ultrasound, so that you're able to do cardiac ultrasounds. It's not part of the course that we do in ultrasound. So it's just an added skill onto what I already know. So the courses that are offered in KMTC, there are so many. I'll be able to share with Hosea the brochure that we have via KMTC. Then it has all the courses and the qualifications. And some of the courses, for me, medical imaging, which is radiography, and not so many people, apparently 70% of radiographers in Kenya are all Kalenjins, most of them. They are, because what happens is that we are so good in sciences. Most of us are just good in sciences, but languages, tuna struggle sana.
Tiket yotok in Nelly, meche kokas biik kyok amu kameche iketyi notok kemwa ile most
in Kenya, and 50% of, I'm very sure even logged in, if you go to Aga Khan, most likely a radiographer will serve you is Kalenjin. You'll see the name.
Kongoi Nelly akobo ng'oliondono. Kotomo itesyi Hosea kit nekemeche imwa, kemwa Nelly ile imeche ibun motorbike, mameche ale boda motorbike, kele imeche iwe Africa, isungukan Africa. Kameche kityo inai ile Africa, kaker eng yu kanging'ololi aker ale ameche aker kityo ale area nebo Africa ko tia. Anyoru ale nekit 11.7 million miles, square miles. So igere ile kiboban. So I like your optimism to be able to go across Africa. It's going to take you a long time.
Yeah, probably 2 years.
Kongo amu itinye kabwatutiet ak a dream neuno. So it's not going to be easy, but it's a good thing. So meje kelejin kimagun chemnyach au kararan ke dreamen kunotok. After all, dreams are free anyway.
And my personal slogan is that, if your dreams don't scare you, then they are too small,
So kongoi Hosea testai tebutiet nekemeche iteb.
Kongoi balozi. Nelly kemwa ingen ile kangimwa ile 80% anan biik chechang radiographer ko biik chebo kutit, at least ameche ateb annual salary chebo, ingen ile ngimwa kunoto kobire hesabukab chitab kutit kole ara tos karibu ata. So tos imwa general annual eng kenyit agenge amu koketiem eng program chechok kelechini biik kwai chekikure diversification in courses kotikeyai amu so mwawech ile generally annually ko karibu ata. Ak kit age ko alin ara kasisiek cheyoe ko chechang ko imi under pressure amu suppose yai au kalen ara kora kemwawech ile inye ko chi ne rahisi ing'ete nini, how can you retrieve for instance age ne iyoe si iweke back to the normal and you are working under the pressure.
Okay, so I think first about the radiography, the courses, we were at courses at KMTC. Just as I said, there are so many. And it just depends on how you position yourself. Just like in that hierarchy, yeah. Usually, the very top ones are very few, and it depends on if you're very good. So for me, I keep adding onto my skill, and I make sure that I'm very good at what I do. When I focus that this is what I want to achieve, like for example, I would tell you, I can basically do everything in radiography. I can do an X-ray, I can do ultrasound, I can do mammography, I can do CT scans, I even do radiotherapy, I do echocardiographies and all that. So at the top there, where probably I am, there is no competition. So if you are at the masses down here, then you don't stand any chance. And the only way you can get up there is by improving yourself. That is your own personal effort as a person to make sure that you improve yourself. And it's not only academics. You improve yourselves both in academics, in the way you carry yourself, your knowledge base, even the way you look, your image matters. Yeah, even language, because I know most of us, we struggle a lot with languages, Kalenjin. How many of you after school have been able to sit down and read a storybook to improve on their wealth of knowledge and even pronunciation? With YouTube nowadays, there is a lot of tutors, a lot of courses that you can be able to take. So for me, it's an overall thing that, I mean, anybody can excel in any area as long as you know where you want to get to. And just as I keep saying, most of the people that I talk to, I tell them that rolling stones gather no moss. So rolling stones, kogo yue chesunguga ni moss ko mutwe no arutwe ngo yue. Mami then there is no stone that can gather the moss if it's rolling. Yeah. So you need to keep improving yourself. And just as Hosea asked about these courses, for me, I wouldn't say I recommend any course better than another one. It's only that you need to diversify. You need to know like what ticks for you, what makes you happy. Like for me, I hate monotony. I don't like things that I do the same things all the time. And that is why I've really diversified in an area that is still untapped, because radiotherapists in Kenya are less than 50. How many people have cancer in Kenya? So many. Another thing, research radiography. There is no one. Actually, there is no research radiographer so far. Somebody who is just into research. Forensic radiography. Probably with a blunt object or something, and what happened. Usually part of the diagnosis to determine even cause of death is X-rays. Who has done forensic radiography? Those are areas that are completely untapped. So there is so much. For me, I can easily talk about where I'm an expert because that is what I understand better. But in terms of these courses like what we have in KMTC, most it is not, you don't read mtu asomangi kukuja kufanya kazi for this on this same population alone. There are so many opportunities out there that every other day are calling for nurses, calling for radiographers, calling for occupational therapists, physiotherapists. Even with the COVID pandemic right now, there is even a high surge. There is a need for medical. And you've seen that even during the pandemic, people went home, probably with no jobs and everything, but medics is when they were overwhelmed. So it is good that we take up these courses that can help you in whatever period of your life. It doesn't mean that those are the only things that you can do, but whatever interests you, and go out there to find out what is it that you want to do, what are you good at, so that you excel in it other than being pushed. So about how I handle my pressure, just as I said, it's about bikes. For me, I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of inspiration. I read books. In my house, I have a library of more than 450 books that I read occasionally. Like one of my best books is a book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. It talks a lot about how you can view your life. Another book that has been very instrumental in my life is The Secret, written by Rhonda Byrne. It talks about the law of attraction. What you think about most, you bring about most. And what you think about, gratitude, what you're grateful for, you bring more better feelings. Yeah. So those are some of the things that I do. I love reading. I ride motorcycles, and I also dance. I love dancing. I have so many recorded dances that I just dance just for fun, for myself, because I don't go out probably to nightclubs and everything for my own personal reasons. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it is not my type of thing that I like doing. And that is how I unwind. And sometimes I just take walks, long walks, and think. One thing that I'm happy or that I'm blessed with is that I think my conscience is still very alive. Occasionally, and most of the time, I do what is known as visualization. I go deep within myself and I think about what is it that I have done good, what is it that I have done wrong. And I think also with age, things have changed. I'm not the Nelly, the 17-year-old and the 34-year-old.
That walked out of school in your work.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes, and another thing that I would like probably to pass even to our viewers is that, you know, your past doesn't define you, yeah, because there's always a turning point. So which is your turning point? When do you start turning? Because where you're going is better than where we are not saying it's way better, but if you choose to make your future better, then it is only within your hands. It is not anybody else who can help you do it. It has to be you. It is intrinsic. It is something that has to come from you as a person.
Kongoi nye Nelly, kongoi. Kameche kityo Nelly iteshin kaimwa uni ki specialize ning tuguk chemongering nga kochanga tukchu ingele keng'ala sometimes chobwoti ale engineer neu Janet ko kakofloten akine se terms chakemwa cho komakingen cho tugul. But how many areas have you specialized in? Amu kaker ko specialization ko kito nebo komonut ako inye icheng'e tuguk chelelach chetomo koityi asisye ko netai. Nekit chito age nekiking'ololchin yu nekikitinye tot koin Dr. Tesot ne ine ko pastor, kikoek neurologist, sai is doing to be anesthesiologist. Yani areas che unique che cheng'e chito amu tomo koityi yotok. So areas ata che ki specialize anin kotomo ateb tebutiet neisubi.
Okay, so for me, basically, it is the neurophysiology which I did initially, which I hardly practice, but it is now coming up. I've seen most of the time, Saizi, people are wanting to do like sleep studies, and they are trying to find who can do this, and there is no one who I mean, there are very few. It's only neurologists who are doing them. And just to make a note is that Dennis Tesot, we used to work together. I remember our theater days. I was the sonographer. Probably they are putting a sign nail. Sign nail ni ile kitu mtu akivunjika femur, the bone between the hip and the knee. Wanaeka chuma hapo ndani. And Dennis was a theater nurse at that time. And he was, I mean, those 2 hours of the surgery would be so short because Dennis was so focused, and I used to love listening to his stories. So I'm happy that he's also been to this show, and he's inspired so many people, which is good. And another area of specialization is radiography. All these things I'm talking about is majorly radiography. In Kenya, you're first a radiographer. That is the basic. Lazima ukuwe unajua kufanya X-ray. You're first a radiographer. Then you specialize either to be a radiotherapist or a sonographer. Radiotherapist, kocho ambago vele tumors, cancer. Then ultrasound is for diagnosis, like kuangalia mtoto kama mtoto ako sawa when somebody is pregnant, or if you have like a breast mass, a breast lesion. See, the most basic is ultrasound because those are soft tissues. If it is a thyroid, goiter, you'll use ultrasound as well. So for me, being that I'm a teacher, I have specialized in both areas of radiography, which is radiotherapy and ultrasound. Then on an added is now echocardiography. Echocardiography is ultrasound of the heart alone. And in Kenya, we have very few. I think there are less than 30, maybe 20 echotechs. There are very few. It is a very specialized area because most of the time it's done by cardiologists. So for me, being a lecturer at KMTC, I got the privilege to be sponsored to do the echo because we were building capacity to be able to teach in our department. Because at the moment, those who are teaching us are all outsourced. So the college is building capacity through their own lecturers who are us, who've already done ultrasound. So it is just an added skill onto it. But those are areas that are really, it needs a lot of skill. I would say they are highly specialized. Like even the transcranial Dopplers that I do, which I'm a collaborator with the KMRI, transcranial Dopplers are not an everyday scan. Transcranial Dopplers, it is called the mid-cerebral artery, unataka kuona pressure. Like now in sickle cell anemia, what happens is usually why most of those patients die, ni kwa sababu most of those, the red blood cells is shaped like a sickle, kiono sickle, yeah? So it clamps on the walls of the arteries, and inafanya blood ina stop kuenda. So once it pulls, ina form kitu inaitwa thrombus, which is a clot. and therefore that patient goes into a stroke from ischemia and all those other things. So what the study is doing is that there is a drug which is meant to dilate the ventricles or the arteries so that blood iache kusimama. And now that is why we are studying the velocities, what causes the pressure hiyo yenye iko kwa brain in sickle cell anemia patients is because blood imeblock agongo pull and go build. If there is something stopping here and there is water coming here, which is blood, then it builds a lot of pressure. So those are the pressures that we measure when we are doing those mishipa tunaangalia at that particular time, because then it shows us that it predisposes this patient to a stroke, and therefore the management is done. So those transcranial Dopplers I got to learn when I was working in Nairobi Hospital, because I happened to have been under a radiologist who was very passionate about transcranial Dopplers in children, and I was part of her team. So I got to learn.
Kongoi nye Nelly. So Nelly ketesetai kakinyoru kora kele inye kouni you are a farmer. So amache imwoiwech akobo farming, you know, so kaieku chito pikipikit eng yu, and then kaieku chito nebo ng'alechu tugul chekaimwa, terms chu tugul chu kakifloten, lakini kongoi amu there is a big area nemakat eng chutachu. So biikab Kalenjin ako kito nekemwa eng yo nekeemphasize ko kemwa ile biikab Kalenjin kochang chemitei boisionichu. Kameche ateschi Nelly ale chitab Kalenjin kochome technology. Abwoti kingegrowen up ko kicham komi biik chekicham kobete baoinik, kosobek chekibete baoinik ak sona kilejin kole. Lakini kingeit chemang'iret kobetyo bichotok, biik chekatar ketik sahi ko biik chok. So ameche kebe farming in Nelly. Kager ale ya farmer uni kole sochek anan ne cho itinye mbaret neiboti anan bo mbarani ako when do you have time for all these ngalechu tugul che kaimwa chu, mi lagok mi ngo mi tukchu tugul, where do you get time for all these? Ako iboti ano ako ne iboti amu agere ka bichek eng yo. Nelly.
Okay. Yeah, so just as I said, I'm just being the personality that I am. And I told you that being an ENTJ, which you can research on, is that we are very rare people. Like 5% of the population are ENTJs and 2% are female. So I happen to be one of them. And that is why, for me, I don't see it like it's a lot of work, but most of my friends tell me, when do you ever get time?
Kigure ne in the percentage na kemwa, kigure ne EN what?
The personality, ENTJ.
Okay.
E for elephant, N for Nelly, T for tiger, and J for justice, ENTJ.
Okay.
Yeah, so what drives me is that I have bounds of energy. And being that I'm an ENTJ, what gives me a lot of satisfaction is productivity. So about farming, one, I started doing it as an extra source of income initially, and even to date, I still do it as an extra source of income because, you know, at some point I had to start toning down. I had to realize that, you know, I have children that I have to take care of. And I'm only in one body. Sometimes I joke with my friends and I tell them sometimes I just wish I was given two bodies. I would send another one to do something else. Then I would be doing something else as well. But farming, I started doing it as an extra source of income. And growing up when we were young, sisi tulisomea, being a P1 teacher, my mom and my dad were not paid that much. So mostly, kenye sisi tulisoma nayo ni things from the farm. And I remember my father used to make sure that every holiday, kuna shamba unakuja kupalilia, like mpaka mumalize. Because that is what would save for your pocket money instead of like kupea watu kibarua ile so that they can be paid for it. So farming, one, I love farming. I derive a lot of satisfaction also in nature. So in the year 2019, actually, I had planted like 30 acres, 18 acres 18 acres, it was 11 acres and 7 acres of maize, uko Narok, uko ndani. And I actually got a huge trip. I got about 260 bags of maize. It was quite a lot. And
so pangombaret nakibat anan kipkikombwan?
I lease. Yeah, I
lease.
usually
Okay, so. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any land myself. I lease most of the land that I use. I lease. Yeah, and one of the things that even was very, one of during the harvest, I wasn't able to get the lorries to transport the maize, and I remember being that our former governor Isaac Ruto is our family friend. I called him and I told him if he could help me with his lorries to be able to transport the maize back home, and he told me, actually, I'm going to give you these lorries because I have been told that there is a girl in this family who literally slept in the farm during a separate harvest. I was there the whole night up to 3 a.m., 4 a.m. because they were loading. Haikuwa inaisha, So I got that help probably just through my hard work. And this is something that I wanted to mention specifically so that people can know that hard work is usually rewarded. Yeah, it never goes to waste. So the farm that you've just shown in the pictures there is a farm that I've been farming in Kuresoi, that is in Molo. The Narok one, it became very volatile. Most of the time there's a lot of clashes and all that. And I had to look for a different area. So these were potatoes. I have done beans and I also do cabbages. And mostly, just maybe to mention is that in this area, it is very productive. In fact, it is one of the areas that I plan to settle finally. Yeah, just in case, I'm still hopeful, Balozi, that I might get remarried. So I really don't want to to go and have being, to be permanent. Yeah, but anyway, that is something that I'm looking forward to. That is one of the areas that I would want to settle. And I do mostly beans and potatoes and cabbages. And I love farming, especially, seeing the crop. I feel good.
Kongoi angen ale mi biik cheisubech ako mara kakokas chingyo so igere ile kakemwa ile kilene ENT what yani chito nema ENTJ so kameche taifafanuan kora sikongen chichini kole ngotko you still plan ile so one day kotatun inyoru ngonyo chi komanyo chi kongen kole achenge chi nekile ENTJ ko chitab kalenjin yeiwendi kokainai ile matangoita so biik chemeche boisionik ako kongoi nye Nelly, we truly appreciate ako
ENTJ ko chito ne extroverted, intuitive, thinking, judging personality traits. They are decisive people who love momentum and accomplishment.
Yeah.
Exactly what Nelly is.
Mi banda chichi ko mi banda ako meche results ako meche tuguk chetogu meche yani tieme ki age tugul ako manyokor yani nyekan chichi everything you can put in one so chitab kalenjin yeiwendi ko inai ile mamicheset so lazima ikilgei eng ole imi so kongoi nye Nali kimakun chemyach ako kongoi eng boisionik cho tugul choto bo kabatisiet chu tugul chu so tos imwoiwech ile very rewarding ng'alekab kabatisiet. Have you really kinyorchi kelchin ng'alekab kabatisiet since you started farming ku kabichecho kekol cho anan ko piasinik chakekol tos ikere ile kinyorchi kelchin?
Yes, for me, I wouldn't still be doing it if it wasn't rewarding. Like just as I've told you about the maize, because I'm very good in records, I actually kept my records, every shilling, including my transport from Nairobi to Narok, even lunch and where I slept and everything was documented. So for all that, I spent about 375,000 to about 400 roughly, because there was a time I lost track, but it was a very small, but I got like about 1.6 1060. That was 1.06. So if it is 1.06 from 400,000, then I got a profit of almost 600,000.
Oh, so ang
Yeah,
bias
that
ini
is-
kan
and
an
then
kopije
starting- For me, for the simple mathematics that I've always observed is for potatoes, I usually spend 60,000 for 2 acres, and I get 120. So for every 60 I spend, I get another 60 for 2 acres. And beans and potatoes, they give me the same, almost the same. If there's a variance, it's a variance of like 10,000, 15,000. For cabbages, it is the cheapest thing to farm. You can use like 3,000 or 4,000 shillings. And of course, without the leasing cost, because I usually lease for a whole year, and a whole year has seasons of about 4 seasons. So depending on what you farm, like in Kuresoi, I usually lease land for 8,000 to 10,000 per year. And it has 4 seasons, depending on how you do your timings, because most of these things are 3 months. But what you can be sure about is 3 seasons, maybe not 4. But in these 3 seasons, you can choose to alternate what you farm at that particular time. And the cheapest to farm is cabbages, but now it is tall order sometimes to look for market. You really need to have your timing well and look for market, otherwise inaweza haribikia huku kwa shamba.
So Nelly, atinye tebutik aeng kityongon. So market nengung ko Nairobi, and then number 2, how are you able to manage mbaret nemi Kuresoi ak imi Nairobi? Makichorin inye amu
Okay.
kiatinye tuga chekialen abai kongyachunde kolecho chito ngichuno kuyo ingen tuchu kole kaitu kole kokonu chego, so lakini kolecho kiboityotin hii ng'ombe inaonekana inakujua kole kokon chego amu imi around. So how do you do it while you are in Nairobi akomi mbaret Kuresoi?
Okay, so I have my cousin who lives in Kuresoi, who apparently is a very good farmer, and she's also one of the field marshals, or what would I say, like appointed by Syngenta. She's the one who does a lot of field teachings and all that. So my cousin, we are very close, and she helps me most of the time to source these farms, and even to advise me on the right kind of seed to use and what is required. So most of the time, I actually don't, I go there probably once a month, and during planting, I'm present, and then during harvest, I'm also present. But in between, Nakuru is not very far, so I usually go probably once, sometimes twice in a month. And being that these are crops that take only 3 months, it's a very short duration of time.
Kongoi Nali. So ameche keweke akoi kebebertab Florida siketeb tebutik, akere kasarta kokakwo ko Janet, mongen ale itinye ne eng kebeberta nengung Janet.
Kongoi Balozi, Kongoi Koraneli for sharing so much about your life. Haimwawe chile you're a farmer, ichame motorbikes, ichame koranga leg up technology, kainetech ke tuguk chechang technology and in medicine, and kainetech tuguk chechang checham kekase kityongon kele oh kap kikweny chito, and then you don't even understand what happens behind the scenes. So thank you so much for sharing that. Nelly, kamache atebenen kityongon ale, so what message now angen ale kaimwa from all the way the challenges chekinyoru as a teenager, itindei teenage crisis up to now as a success story, and your hard work and focus. What message do you have in girls a community kora, especially right now? Last year kokiker kele chang tibik cheko they were expecting or they got pregnant during the period when they were not in school, and many were not able to go to school. Chang kora chekip keon in school, chang kora chemuch kikoon sigik. So kimeche ingololji tibik choto, kimeche ingololji kora sigik, ak kimeche ingololji kora the community about this issue. Agora, Nelly, what do you tell the men impregnating these young women, young girls? I can't even call them women. They're young girls. They're really minors. At Chaco, they don't even take responsibility. Karibu Nelly.
Okay, thank you. So to begin with, I'm very passionate about the girl child, and not because I'm a feminist or anything, but it's just because us girls are already predisposed to more challenges in the community than men. In fact, what I know is that most men are like, even when mistakes are done, even in marriages when they fail, in most cases we are very quick to blame the women that walikuwa wanafaa kuvumilia, they were never sijui committed, they were sijui what and what, all those things, and the man walks scot-free. To me, I would like to say that for men who impregnate young children or young women or school-going kids or anything, it is something that, one, they are to blame, and two, they are also not to blame. Because the question would be, what has the community done in terms of empowering the boy child? You can see that I'm a product of the 80s. Yeah, I was born in the 80s. Between the 80s and the 90s is when there was a lot of sensitization and a lot of promotions about the girl child. And somehow the boy child was just forgotten somewhere. The girls were empowered. I'm a product of that empowerment of the girl child, which in the 90s, we were the 3, the 4-year-olds. And today we are the 30-year-olds. And our counterparts, probably, majority, may not be doing as well as we are doing. Like, for example, I'll give you my own classmates who we went to school in nursery and some in primary, in class 1, class up to class 3 when I was still studying there in the village. I'm very sure, I do not have the proper statistics, but less than 10 of us actually got to where we are today. And probably for the girls, could be 2 or 3. The men somehow disappeared. They went into drugs. Some have, today we stand with some of them, you cannot tell that we are of the same age. But the question is, this same community where we live in, which was empowering the girl child, where did we go wrong about our boy child? We've raised kids who are not taught to be men. And men, to me, is to mean that there is what is given in the Bible, the responsibility to provide, to protect, and to lead the family. It is priesthood, to lead the family to God. The question is, who is teaching them priesthood? If the parents are not there for this boy child, yeah? Probably at that time, they were forgotten completely. Nobody was trying to instill these values as much as the girl child. The scholarships that were everywhere, it was all about the girl child, the girl child. The boy child was forgotten somewhere. So one, these men who impregnate young girls, for me, it is more of what, the Bible says that so what was instilled to that child is number one. Maybe it wasn't the right thing, or they were just forgotten, or they are made to be the strong people, they don't even know how to express their emotions. They don't know how to express themselves. So then they have to find an exit, yeah? And that exit has to come. And you see, this exit could be in engaging in sexual activities. And who is easy, to be lured, or who is easily accessible? These young girls. Because you might give them, small favors, and they consent to things like sex. And at the end of the day, they get pregnant. So my question is, who is to blame? We are all to blame. I'm not saying that it is immoral, but then you can only give what you have. If it was not taught to you, then what do we expect to get from you? So as parents, we need to learn to teach our values to our kids. I know we come from a conservative community where sexual issues are hard to talk about. People don't talk to their daughters, and yet they soon go into men at 9 years. Some people get pregnant as early as class 5, which is 10 years. Who talks to them? Who tells them? You know, we take it like it's a taboo. And those are the things that we need to start talking to our children at the home level. And if not, then people like us who are a little bit enlightened should come out and talk to the girls as it is in schools, should be probably integrated in our curriculum, that in the curriculum, there has to be probably mentorship programs that in between maybe every term, the school is strategic on getting mentors, people to come and talk to these girls in small groups so that we bridge the gap that is not done at home. Because, you know, it's hard. Ni ngumu sana kutoa culture from us. As much as I would say this today, I'm sure there are people who would condemn me and say that you're trying to teach us, but then it is what is affecting us. The boy child is forgotten. Our mothers, I can't remember if my mom ever talked to me about anything to do with sex and to do with boys. It was more about don't get pregnant. But this process of getting pregnant, nobody ever said, yeah? And you know, that was me. How about other people? And remember, my parents were educated. So we need to try and see how we can be able to bridge these gaps, probably at our own level, in our own communities. And these young girls who, like me, who got pregnant, it is not the end of everything. I mean, today, the message that I came to bring, having said all these things for the last 3 hours, my message is, I am a testimony of it. At least you have someone you can see in person. I've talked about my achievements, what I've been able to achieve. And I got a baby when I was 19 years. Today I'm 34. That is a difference of almost 15 years. I have 3 children today. I have achieved probably much more than some of my peers who did not get kids when they were young. So the thing is, it doesn't stop you from doing anything. Our parents also, if I was not supported from home myself, that, you know what, as long as it is to take you to school, you can still go back to school, because education is an equalizer. Whether you come from the richest family or from the poorest family, the only thing that will equalize all of you is masomo, because you can literally change your future from today, from where you start from. It doesn't matter where you come from a poor family or from a rich family. The thing is, this thing ya stereotype, like parents sometimes they feel huyu ameshaza kumavotu asugule. No, that shouldn't be. In my own opinion, today I'm those kind of parents who, if by any chance my daughter's mess or something, I will be willing to take care of that child so that they go back to school to be able to take care of themselves. If anything, nimejipunguzia mzigo. Like today, my parents, I don't go back to them to ask them for anything. What if they kept me at home with that baby? I would still be a liability to them to date. Probably I wouldn't be able to achieve anything. So for parents, it is more of, can we try and teach our kids? Let's try and listen to our children. And another thing that I have always had, like, as a conversation, even at home, because the family I come from is very democratic, and nowadays we are able to talk about our issues openly and say. And I've always insisted on the fact that children are born different. I have 3 children who are completely different. They have different personalities. And how another child would take correction is different from another one. They rebel. But you talk to them, they listen. Maybe they are broken at different levels. They listen. You see, so it's more of understanding who your child is. This generalizing that huyu mtoto million, they are not the same. They're entirely 2 different people, or 3 different people, or totally different people. So parents should make an effort to learn what works for this child A, this child B, and be able to instill values that cut across. Yeah. For the girls, I have a program that recently, no, in 2017, I actually started. It's something that I pioneered. I usually do ultrasounds for free once a month in a health center, not in the big hospitals. I go to like Kiptula dispensary. The next one I'm going to is Sotik Health Center. And I go there to do ultrasound, not because wamekosa a means or anything. One, it is for me to give back to the community. Number 2, it is a contact point. I want to meet this mother who is, because most of them are within the reproductive age. I want to meet this mother who, apart from that we have done the ultrasound. Moving forward, then we talk about economic activities. How can I help you make soap? Because at least I know how to make soap from ingredients that are available in Nairobi. One, it reduces on fetal maternal health and reduces fetal mortality, watoto hawakufi because of uchafu and all that, and these other, associated with hygiene. That is one, but my contact point is when I'm doing these ultrasounds. The question is, how many of us who've been privileged to get to those areas that you go back to your community to give back either your knowledge, your skill, or whichever way, the small way that you can do. So for those of us, or for others who would wish to give back, why not? Why are you not doing it? Yeah, because for me, ultrasound is an expertise that I have. Clearly, if I were to do that ultrasound in Nairobi Hospital or in Aga Khan, they wouldn't afford. I have brought it there. But number two, it is a contact point that I want to meet these women, take a database of them, and see how they can do mats. Like right now, I'm trying to establish a market for hand-woven mats so that they can do it themselves, and then I try and get a market for them. So what are we doing as people who have, we are favored by God? It is by grace. It is not automatic that we are supposed to be where we are. But with what you have, then how are you able to give back to the community? So that is, I think I have covered everything: community, about the parents, about girls, and about men who impregnate young kids. It is completely wrong. But then what are we doing about it? Yeah.
So it's a community thing to go back and be able to discuss this, you are saying?
Yes.
Kongoi nale mameche totisyen niteng katita ketebe tebut ing yo lakini matinye tebut ose amongen kitinye tebut nemeche iteschi lakini akoi yotok abwoti ale koitiny tuguk tugul Nelly ako kongoi nebo man Janet uni itinye tebut.
Ameche atebe Nelly Chongon. I know your principle really helped and shaped your life and your outlook even in situation nekimite. Nene imwachini mwalimuinik chetinye lagok in school, maybe some they know, maybe some they don't know, and then sikoek at least angot friendly kokashi lagochu akoek embrace en lagochu ako encourage en lagochu. Just
Ako Nelly mongen kokibicheng that principle nekibo Nakuru amu kaker chichotok kabisa kobo kamanut ngot ko tomo ameche asom ale bicheng kityo sikonai kole this is Nelly nekinye.
Severally.
Wait.
Yeah.
Ikiotuye?
Yes, she initially, before she got a stroke, she actually suffered from a stroke. But before that, when I was still married, there was a time that we went, me and my ex-husband, to her home to go and tell her thank you. Yes, and then later on now, well, we've had so many visits to her as a school, as Nakuru High, that occasionally we visit her in her home because she suffered a stroke, and she recognizes some of us. She does.
Kongoi. So walute butieta bin Janet nakakatet.
What do you
about teachers?
Karibu Nelly.
Okay. About teachers, I know some of us. Me, I'm a lecturer at KMTC, probably at a higher level, but teachers should look at that child at class 7, class 6, Form 1, Form 2. How much can they really handle? Very little. All they are thinking about is shame, how they are going to commit suicide, how they are going to abort that child. The last thing they want to hear is ridicule from a teacher or somebody, wanasema maji yakimwagika hayazoleki. Now, once it has happened, then what? For me, I'm a testimony of somebody who believed in my capabilities and never saw that, you're flawed in maybe your morals or character or whatever. She never judged me in that perspective. She just kigile ko seri impai minginate. Konga mungo seri impai minginate. Then whose responsibility? It is us who are a bit grown to be able to hold their hands. So for me, every teacher, should you find that your student is pregnant, depending on whatever stage, Yeah, if they are in primary school, of course, those are children who need a lot of support in terms of, encouragement, because the fellow students will also laugh at them. They cannot handle that. You can give them a year off and keep visiting so that they feel encouraged to come back to school. Because the end game here is we don't want them to get pregnant and disappear. And we are not also encouraging them to get pregnant. Yeah, from my own story, I believe if I had been, a better student without all these funny things, it has taken me a very long period to get to where I am, which I would have gotten to long time ago. And probably I would have helped even more people. And, we wouldn't be doing our masters at 34. Probably I would have done it long ago. So the thing is if it was out when they happen, we should try and see how we can be able to help our girls. And what are the preventive measures? It is to try and talk to them in community levels, in church, have easy vikundi za wamama zenye wamama wanaendanga church in 2 years. What do they talk about? Why don't they also talk about among themselves, like how are we going to talk to our children? Can we organize a neutral, because sometimes maybe our parents, just as I said, we come from a very conservative community. People fear talking about such things with their children, but an outsider can come and talk about it, but organized by the same parents. There are so many ways of killing a rat. Yeah.
Kongoi nye Nelly koitin tuguk chechang Nelly. Amache kityo atesyi ale oye yeiwendi banwechu tugul amu kele imeche iwe sungukan Africa 11 something
million
miles square miles che lazima iwe ko yamin kekurenin Dr. Nelly. So ngomukoksei amu kele meche itau your masters, kimeche kora kiro kele kenyoru your PhD. Me and Osea will attend your graduation when you graduate with your PhD. I don't know where, but we will be there to celebrate you.
Thank you. I'll make you proud.
You will make us proud. Ako imukokse tukche tugul ko iborwech kunotok ako it's never too late. Kuye kemwa kemeche kemwochi biik chok chebo Kalenjin ko imwoiwech kora Nelly ile biikab Kalenjin are very good in technology. So ngetokchigei lainatak chang opportunities chemite kebeberta nebo medical eng biik chok. Cheng area ne you are exceptional. Ko ngiwe notok ko nyamnyum inyoru boisiet. Ko nging'ololi ko kaakas eng yo ilen cham isomoni gazetit abwoti ale iwendi classified. Kole mabendi biik chechok uni torchin biik chechok kiep sports komatakoit olimbo classified. Lakini nyeiwendi classified ikeri ile mi ne ko ngot komi boisio iaplayan inyoru kasi. Ko biik chok chechang ko ngonyoru nguno Nelly kole kakas Nelly kong'ololi ko ameche isomwa kasi, so go to classified. Metar kityo gazetit itorchi katikati, read the classified. Nelly kosomani storybooks, kararan knowledge ak tuguk chelelach. Mewe kityo internet ak googlen ak icheng kityo WhatsApp ak iyokyi Osea WhatsApp kityo. Finden out ile technology kotoretin eng ne mi tukyoto tugul. Kongoi Nelly eng ng'alaleng'ung. Kimeche kemakun chemyach. Mongen Osea ale ameche awek abwoti ale kitaunen akile ladies first kotomo kikochi Nelly komwoiwech ng'alekchik chebo let. Ko ameche ataune Janet. Janet, kaisubu bani, koinyong bani, koiker Nelly ko she's an entrepreneur, chome pikipikishek, malen boda pikipikit, chome pikipikit, meche kwa, she's very optimistic. Kasungukan kesungukan Africa kuma mining. Emet nguno nekaker Nelly neo ko nimbo Asia ko paranotok lakini koruba Africa. So Africa ko kabisa. Ko kesungukan ak itinye maket ile kewe inet biikab Africa. Ko you are very optimistic in that. So mongen ale kainetege ne. What is your takeaway, Janet? Eng banep Nelly ketesetai Janet.
Kongoi balozi Hosea ak chitugul netagosubech abwati ale kakecher age tugul, and Nelly, your story has really been inspiring. It's me thinking about my childhood amu, even though imuch ma happen and some of the things engane ko unye, but I can see that in big chang and in big chigi lagok tugul, and so it's just so inspiring to see you. Ako abwati ale ngokaikas chi akingen chi neibwati ile kikobun this journey, and because there are so many girls out there who have gone through the same, kemeche kelenji takomi kamangunet, it's not the end of the world, and you can still do it and flourish and even do more. Look at Nelly right now. When you go travel in Africa, not in the just the simple way. And Nelly, I think and I wish you well on your ambition. I would love to, help plan and support, especially with the mission. Nebagetaret women konyor screening chapa cancer and just empowerment. I would really love to be a part of that. But kia so many kora, there are these guys who jepunati motorbike kitaone South Africa kopa all the way to South America. So you can travel the world with your motorbike. So it's just
We're
inspiring.
actually the same group with Wamoyo Karaoke. It's called Ink Sisterhood. She's one of my friends. She's one of my mentors, and she's really traveled a lot on a motorbike.
Wow, look at that. So inspiring. So mabigi bigi tinege what you can do, but remember safety first. Abwati Nelly always has that as a very, very high priority. Kitage kora Nelly neganetege o namicha citizen big up Kalenjin kukakumawech Nelly about teenage crisis, kagomwawich about teenage pregnancies. I don't know. This is an area I'm really passionate about, so I'm sorry if I'm insisting a lot. But I think we really, really, really need a lot of work as a community. Ako tago chang tuguk chege lasima gaya ko amacha challenge en kanisoshe yautende tuyetap chebiosok mothers conference yautende kayo, I think inaitwa kayo in ACK. When you have men's conference, when you have youth conference, make sure committee sex education and agenda. I go practicing safe sex, practicing especially men to how can, like, don't go for children. These are minors. Engoliep America, that is a felony. When the jailer and impregnate and lakweneming and I need to lakweneming. So we want to challenge the government and also our community. Kesetan those standards. Amugigere nyugo liabilities kora engaging community. So let's really, really emphasize and put that at the top of our agenda. Kitaganele nagai mwachi picture ko gelenji. There's no limit to your dreams. If your dreams don't scare you, they are probably not big enough. So I will leave that for everyone to just take it in and digest. YouTube. I always say, ngoti Wendy Facebook is scrolling gerati politics. You can go to YouTube and watch a 5 minutes video that will teach you how to do something new, that will teach you how to create a skill ne muji mutai koma isame chi siling diptem ne muji mutai ialtini get credit. So challenge yourself. Nakate Wendy Facebook iwe YouTube agabinet kege. So learn to learn new skills. Let's always reinvent and renew ourselves. And above all, it's never too late. You can turn over your life whichever way it is. Kagumwawech Nelly about her life, Kagumwawech about her dad, Negita Onego me 40 something. So it's never too late. Anguna gotinye PhD. So amache game na tak pick up Kalenjin na kongoi pictable onge shan onge testai gerage ngoi mwalimu ya ngoi anything. You can always do something for yourself and for your community. One last thing about community service. She's giving back. Chamgele no big up diaspora or give back. Kegere huwa big change zaidi. Here is Nelly, me Nairobi. Ajinge nega sinyi tinyi lagok. So she has a family. She's a single mother, raising all these kids, working so hard. She's a lecturer, but she still has time to go to her village and give back. So we can always do something. That is what I always believe. Ngotinge ni yalde bandek Konne ko inetege neingen ile tos benefit ne chito age ne aldo bandek ngolin bo kurgat ne mengen. What can they do? Or what can you tell them? If you have traveled, what can you share? Kongoi.
Kongoi nye Janet eng ngalekuk chekai ngalal kogo meche sikenyoru ose ang yu kotokomwoiwek kongoi ngakwek tugul chekakosube chobwoti ale kaicherake meche kityo kibwatun kelejin nali yeitesetai kuni sir kitabut. It's also very important. We want to encourage you to write a book of your story. It's gonna inspire so many other people as in the future. Kongoi ko kebwatwa Nelly kingo growing up abwati ale akot akwek ko kicham komitei commercial nebo Eveready nekicham kelen chapa paka power na mongen ale kikilene never say die. So this is Nali amu in this commercial nekibo Eveready ko notok yani ngokaibut inget ak itestai. So kito nekararan Koliot age nekanetke Nelly ko inye ko ameche kotakibwotyi biikab Kalenjin kora keleji there is a reason why asiko windscreen nebo karit ngimi kari age tugul akot nda matatu anan ko basit anan ko ne ko kikinde windscreen nobo tai yun koet kosir nebo let. So bo komonut ako mi amune sikinde komining'it nebo let kinde koet nebo tai ko amu bo maana tuguk chemi tai kosir chebo let. So after time achek tugul kekuse kong'o kelen kityecha chebanum kityecha anum ami primary ko that is why kiyai kunoto. So ibut ing'et ak itestai. Ngibut ak itebi eng ng'ony ko yoto ikonu asenet, lakini ngibut ak ing'et ak itestai iite ole ki Nelly ak isire okot yoto kebendi ketesetai. Ko kongoi Nelly kimakun chemyach. Ameche anyorun osea akotakibwatun kelejinin kongoi eng sponsor nenyonet notok Telcom nekemuch kotoretech sikobit kebwa. Ngimeche taisponsor this program ketochin asitoretech sikeitchi biik alak tekesungukani yeking'etyi eng yu uni king'etu eng emetab Kenya. Abwoti ale kinyoru a very interesting person eng Nairobi konekit. So tun eng tetutiet sikotokomwoiwech osea ko osea mongen ale take away chekuk kone mongen kokekas Nelly ng'alek chekomwoe chokicham kelen kingo growing up ko kiakas no Eveready chapa paka power kicham akase that commercial ako kito nekiakas ane ko amining ko kimwa noto kole never say die, yani this Eveready kong'ete akotestai. So Eveready nenyonet eng betutab rani ko Nelly maitebi eng ng'ony kibut ak ing'et ak itestai kote iwendi. Ng'oliondo nekakemwa nekakele en something mongen ale kane ng'alecho lakini chito newendi kotesetai kimakun chemyach inye Nelly as you continue. Kakisom kele ndemukoksei tau sir kitabut asitun at least komiyo ako kakikonin kora kelejin Nelly we all believe kele you are a PhD material yamin itestai kunotok kotinyoru PhD tun kebwa graduation ng'ung'et kakere okot eng yobo let ko kami pichait igraduateni ko tukche tugul chekomukoksei ako eng chito neu inye netindoi maket ako tindoi ambition ako meche kotestai. Osea mongen ale koib ne inye takaway neng'ung ko ne?
Kongoi balozi Peter Ronoh, kongoi biik tugul balozi chamwa kityo balozi aricognizen bichu kakosubet saishek chemi tai. Ako kongoi engineer amu kaishen kameche kosasom Nelly kotakanech through kora kiro all features cha balozi amu kidileni on a real story nebo sabaritab Nelly. Ngiro some of the photos balozi kit nekanetege komi pichait nekalen aro Nelly kenyisiek 10 chekikosirto akalen aro Nelly saizi kabisa balozi ikere ile pcho Mungu kotoror ako korom. Kongoi. So Nelly kakimeche kityo sikonech kityo all through kebe through the photos amu some of the photos chekuket kora ko speakeni a lot ako sendani message a lot. Kit age kora nekanetege balozi ko at times in life in community ngap imekana choice Because our society go much go moving in our society. Ngab ay research policy kenyoru kele bije emoni kimi emotunwechu kimi ngab kobire 100 and something years ngab kobire 110 years ko biik kyok ko amune ngochundo biik ko kakoi 60 70 kochundo biik kyok lakini at times in a community much kakwaki igere ile ki sabari nebo Nelly kicham kelejin muite lion ko ndakima taken that courage akomang out of ako mekana serious decision jamuny maboiboitu biik alak igere ole u saing sabarit. So it's a big lesson for most of us. Is something is not working ako kai analyze and critically it's not working for you kote itestai itebi ing yotok. That's why most of this time kenyoru a lot of cases chebo depression, kenyoru biik chebo ngalek chewendi kwakit age mutai nemaki explain. So it is upon us kanetkei ale at time in life if something is not working at times you make a serious decision akibir utan akiam mbele ndama mekan decision chekimekan ele komut kata makinyoru eng betutab rani. Kit age kora mekaneteke ko the resilience nekitindoi Nelly despite of the background nekikabun nekimakoyal lakini kochenjen tuguk along the way lakini kora kotokowek akokilgei akofaitan ra kwa success story. So it's upon you creating your own story, fighting for your own life kodam kelen initiating process lakini kora ko sabet nebo success nebo maisha ko it is upon you individually. Probably sigik ko kilipan kityo chepkondok lakini kesoman radiography cho tugul cho ko kimakomi sigindet class yu kosomani. So it's upon you. Akit kora nekatoretech Nelly balozi ko kediscover kele ngap prime emenyo nebo olimbo Kenya ingen ile 80% of people chekingalali ko 99% kolechino osea itundoi ano oloimi mami chi nelejin auye weke olem nyumbani lenji itukuli aitundoi ano oloimi. So kotomiitu olomi kochang tuguk chemuch iyai kalen aro olimbo kuresoi kochang tugun so chang tuguk che treasures chemuch iyai eng emet nyo bo Kenya anan nyo bo mashinani iro kit nekiyai. Kit age as Nelly nekap koshangasan nekanetkei ko neptuktukit ngap pikipikit nekinyo ko kibo commercial. So ngatos kikreatene pikipikit ko make an awareness. It is not only for money and it is not only so you can use something in make an awareness. So Nelly, we wish you all the very best as you progress in Africa. We believe at some stage kora in future kotitu kora emoni eb Australia. Ngokas chumbek imekani awareness nebo tuguk cheu cho kabisa kekonin total support because balozi you can't get someone who can sacrifice konet chi anan kokoitan information. So people go, it's a rare people and nekakaboisie Nelly kole terminology nekakale ENT what so bichota ko rare and so kongoi Nelly so kakinetkei akere next week balozi keibu dictionary konyo show amu awa taek kyo kora ko challengenech akicheket kebwane show so kakipangan ke akichek. Kongoi Nelly chanua na achek kemi show. All the best Nelly.
Kongoi nye osea kongoi ngakwek tugul chekakosubech kongoi ing biik chekakosubech kong'eteke taunet kitinye kamang'unet kele kaicher age ing oret age anan ko age ngomaicher age inyoiwech kat amu ara kilyochinin kityeme keyai kit nekimuchi kakecher age chu kemi oli ako kit nekaneteke Nelly ameche kityo asom ale yecheng kosetitchi ui bit classified metorchi sports kityo nangap kenyoru ako akonyiti biik chechome sports ngap inyoru biik cho kabisa kikisub sports which is good nekit kotoige Olympic koker kole mine amu kami opportunities chemi yotok and they are real so ngap amu torchin yu ko biik alak cheu Nelly ko kakosoman kwa plan mutai konyor kasi ko imukakse tukchu tugul ko kimeche keweke sikobit kenyoru Nali asikobit komwoiwech ng'alek chik chebo let ko Nelly kimakun chemyach as you raise your kids as you continue with your endeavors eng ng'alekab somanet kakekoschine kele yenye itau September iwe metorchi katikati kikibachek ngipkemi utau kemeto korok kele ngeborye lagok kitelel ak nyas konye ketau ketestai so lakini inye ko maitelel so kitestai having and raising kids itestai kunoto so kimeche itestai inam that momentum you all the way ibitar your PhD. Age magun kora chamnyat ngot komi chito ne nyekan ne kakoker kole kakokas ngalechu kaip koker kole uye imuchi kechapasta menyo kityo imuchi kechapasta ngot kaiker ile you can fit in imuchi sinai ikonu application ngunget metarchi un but you know so akikere the package nenyonundoi ko imukakse tukyo tugul so ako chito nebo kamanut ne manyokor ako chito ne nyekan kimakun chamnyatinye Nelly as you continue with what you want to achieve imukakse tukyo tugul kuyo kaimwaiwech kimeche kekonin boroindo Nelly imwaiwech ngalekuk chebo let ako kitesetai kesaun and we truly appreciate. We will follow you. You will become part of the family of this program of ours going forward. Ako ngot komi kora chito netinye story neingen chorwa nemi uya ko imuchi kotoret chi story nenyinet, we would welcome and get to know them sikobit ketach kora eng tetutienyo. Nelly, karibu.
Thank you so much, Balozi. Kongoi kabisa. I'm very grateful for this opportunity because for me, if it is not to tell my own story to motivate or to encourage someone else, then what? Yeah. So I'm very happy that you've given me this opportunity today. I'm Moini Wongoi Hosea. He's a very good friend of mine. And through him, then we've been able to have this session today. And also, I must acknowledge Eric Maraba. He's also one of the people who've been very instrumental. Janet, of course, such a pretty girl with brains. Thank you so much. And one thing that I want to leave you with as my closing is the Murphy's Law. The Murphy's Law states that anything can go wrong will go wrong. And therefore, the vice versa is also true. Yeah. So if anything was meant to go wrong, it is not the end of life. It means if anything also was to go right, it will go right. And the lesson that I have learned from the Murphy's Law is never to beat yourself too hard. You know, when you get down, dust yourself and get up and continue, because this journey is not for the weak in heart. It is for those who have courage and who can continue. And last but not least, I want to recite one stanza of a poem. And I recite when I was in class 3 in Kinyelwe Primary. And it has been a journey. It talks about, I actually thought about it, and it talks about the journey of my life and where I have been today. So those are my closing remarks. Let me just recite the poem. It is only one stanza. It says, Anyi somanet webikyo, chamu nyamdutik cheonyi, ndango litita mwalimu, komi kipkutina ak sigikyo, ko litita ngou kibiriane kiyam kororia. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Kongoi katekebeit lakini kemwa kityo stanza situn inde kitabung'ung inde that poem amu kikomutun all along. Kou yu kakimwa Nelly kimeche kemakun chemyach chi age tugul nekaisubech, kongoi eng chi age tugul nekaikas ng'alechu, abwoti ale kaicherake ku achek chekakocherech Nelly. Nelly kuye kakimwa kimakun chemyach, kimakchini lagokuk chemyach yeitesetai ak karwotitoet notok kakimwa kakoschine kele dreams anan dreaming is free. So irwotite amami karwotitoet menyokoritu ngot komaskionin tuguk cheirwotchini inai ile kabuch choto lakini you know, so ongetiem kikilgei eng ole kimi imukakse tukyo tugul. Professionals eng ole omi kiyan tugul kele ndemukakse iweke, give back to the society. Sigik ongeng'ololchi lagok, let's discuss about some of these things chemakikonye kemwa, something about, you know, sex. Ongeng'alale kemwochi lagok, sigik komwochi lagok sikobit konetkei lagok akoistoegei tuguk cheu chotok. Ngemakwok chemyach kasubik chok tugul, kongoi eng boroindo nekoib ngobirok Jehova ko Hosea ngawe kebebertang'ung kakakimwa kele mongen ale kitinye tawat yeking'etye eng Bomet kebendi ano Hosea. siketar tetutiet.
Kongoi balozi Peter Ronoh ak kongoi biik tugul chekatunen in eng betutab rani. Ameche kityo balozi amakibe aketokchigei toot, ameche kityo tashian akobo sponsors akiwekchini kongoi sponsors chechok choto ko kampunit nebo Tolcom chekitrustanech akokonech boisiet kole keeku one of ko-sponsor program nenyo. Kiwechi kongoi noto ko CEO noto ko kikure Dominic mi kebeberta nebo UK ak Betty komi kebeberta nebo Scotland. Kisome bikyok tugul chomi kebeberwek ba diaspora emetab Australia ak emotinwek tugul otaondoten Tolcom. Tolcom ko kampunit nebo lakwetab gaa kong'ete olimbo Baringo. Ameche kityo aplain Tolcom.
Introducing Tocoms, the easy way to call Africa. Enjoy clear voice calls to Kenya from 5 cents per minute and Zimbabwe from 25 cents per minute. The best part is that the receiver doesn't require mobile data. Call everyone with group calls of up to 5 people. New customers get 10 minutes absolutely free when they top up using our easy top-up options. Download Tocoms today and stay connected.
Kongoi biik chok tugul chekatunen in eng program nenyo. Biik che agere tukotunen in, mi biik chengelen kemande kotukoitu lakini kiwechi kongoi eng kolset akoi betut nerube noto ko kwang'wan kasi ketinye toot agenge nekisome kele oye kaikai mekosan sinyinyoru inendet
Nee Chitab Kalenjin kibendi ketoch ak okwek tugul eng tetutiet notok ne inegei ne indoi kony komugul ang komasta notok nebo Facebook Live. Tetutietab Igere Nee Chitab Kalenjin kondoi host nenyonet kobun emetab South Australia Adelaide, Ose Kipronobor kobata host nenyonet kobun emetab America, Balozi Peter Ronoh kobata Beautiful Coast konemengune emetab Florida USA notok ko Engineer Janet. Ibwatile koketiwak special episode kora notok nebo somok mut keibun toek chotok cheterchin kobun ematunwek chechang choto nyokojerin nyokonetin akokonin kamang'unet eng sabet kotugul. Kokeitwa episode notok nebo somok mut akabwatun nele kindei one of our special guest notok ko George Washiru notok ne CEO Optiven Group Nairobi, Kenya. Ibwatile inendet kora ko entrepreneur, author, motivator, philanthropist, a family man ko inendet ko la lecturer, church elder ako inendet kingalali nguno ko founder notok nebo Optiven Group. Inendet kotononjin kampuni notok nebo real estate company notok ne property investor in Africa and other parts of the world. Optiven kora ko crown and number 1 recently ngalekab land selling real estate eng region notok by super brand East Africa kole indoi ngalekab Optiven. Megosani tune in Chitab Kalenjin imunyo chorchit kora eng Facebook Live isachan Osek Brono Kwanet ko YouTube. I-like the page ak subscribe and Igere Nee Chitab Kalenjin sikobit ketesta kibagenge. Saishek choto chebo South Australia kongete saa 4 ak nusu nebo kemboi ko emetab Kenya ko saa 10 nebo koskoleny ko emetab America kongete saa 2 nebo karon. Ibwatile tarik 20 ak 9 ketuitosi kibagenge en Facebook Live intituitab Igere Nee Chitab Kalenjin. Megosani tune in sinyokenetin sinyokekonin kamang'unet sinyenyoru information chotok chetechin Chitab Kalenjin eng ui tugul yemi eng ng'onyuni. Kongoi missing yekichututosi komasanto Facebook Live. Amibwatile sponsors chejoget ko Tocoms imuji birche simet kwa emetab Kenya kiboishe $0.05 per minute. Angotimite Kenya ibwatile mamagat data age tugul ime komasta noto mamagat.
Kongoi biik chok tugul cheisube chekatunen in eng betutab rani. Kongoi biik kora chakere kotukobwone ak biik chemi kebeberwek chumbo YouTube ak kimwowo kityo kele onyoru tetutik chuchok tugul kong'ete episode 1 akoi episode 35 kokeiwe YouTube nenyo nebo Igere Nee Chitab Kalenjin ak ilaikan ak ishean ak isubscriben ak itachi sikosikyi kosubscriben sikosikyi ketestai kibagenge. So kimakwaki age tugul yomi emetab Australia oruye nemie, yomi emetab Kenya kimakwak jioni nemie, yomi America kimakwak betut nebo kaberuret akoi kwang'wan kasi niketuye ak toot noto ko George Washiru, toot agenge nemameche ikosan ngimi ole imi oiye taji leche kitinye toot kitinye no kikure billionaire. Ngot ko iji neimeche tun ing'et nini ko toot necherin anan itinye imakchinigei ng'alekab imbaret imokyinigei itokchigei ng'alekab real estate koto the right person kokakimutwak eng betunotok nyokokonin solution. Ngimi diaspora angen ale biikab diaspora ko kikiun ini bitobot inendet kokale kikiun karibu 5 million lakini makufan moyo, so itagat sinikenyoru George Washuri.